Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Giuseppe Montesano, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMails24, Unimento, M Iron26, Endless, Golden McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
And that's completely like boxy, if you will. And then when you control it from the receiver, you'll the arm, that the hydraulic arm that moves the dish, it does create an arc per se, but to program it, you had to get those datum points of azimuth and elevation. So it'll just kind of like, cross each specific point that you targeted on. But it's it it's really, really interesting because that's just because that's the way we see. Like everything is like that personal dome, everything's a 360 from your view, and you go to a different state and you have different azimuth and elevations, of course, because you're in a different position on a flat plane. It just makes
Correct.
complete sense.
But it's a horizontal plane. What you're describing again,
Right,
because
right,
you need to have a
What's the
baseline
personal
for this
dome?
arch that you're mentioning, and the
right.
arch that you're mentioning, it starts from the surface above you and again goes above your head into the surface again. So
Hmm.
anything above the surface, that's the arch we're
Right,
talking about, which requires
right.
a baseline, just like a
Absolutely.
protractor. That's the description of a protractor.
Yep.
The geometry
Exactly.
doesn't fit on a sphere.
That's a dumb
Yeah.
argument.
Hey, good morning,
Definitely.
guys.
Definitely
No, they were
true.
making sense. What's a dumb argument? That's what they were describing.
That's what Jaron says. It's a dumb argument.
Oh, well, please identify. Please
It's only to
identify.
kill it. It's only to kill her, right, Ten?
Oh, my gosh.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. I was enjoying listening to it.
I didn't even know you guys jumped in the room. Busy
Yeah,
setting up some stuff on my computer.
we jump from dimension to dimension. We just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, Nathan gives you throws you guys in the peanut gallery a bone and lets you in first all the time.
Hey, we got to get something. These peanuts aren't cutting it.
Well, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
can't stop thinking about this Thursday night thing. I listened to QE again last night, and it's, oh my goodness, it's just so bad.
I know. Let's keep it there.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, it's not even worth discussing.
No, it
Speak
is
for
worth
itself.
discussing. This is the beauty of it. That's the whole reason I wanted Nathan to listen to the initial video, and so he could see how Jaron was setting things up. And then I knew, like John knew, like everyone knew what was going to happen, and it happened just like the way we thought it was going to happen. And Nathan did a great job of staying on one point, hypothesis construction. And they're still bleeding. It is so devastating. I say we stay on it, on it, on it, on it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Just that it's so self-explanatory. Anybody who watches that They're going to be like, what the heck is wrong with this guy?
This whole thing of Whitsitt wanting to come in as AKA audit NASA is all to stop the hemorrhaging. It's just like what the press does. They change the news cycle so you don't, no, we don't want you looking at that. Let's change the news cycle. So it's like a wrestler in the ring with a partner, and he's like, wanting to touch him so he can come in and exchange fighters because he's about to get tapped out, or he's already tapping out. If you can't have a conversation, that's reasonable, logical, that people can follow, which is what happened in that debate, it's like, why are you contradicting yourself so many times here?
Hey, but 10th man, what I don't understand is this. Nothing has ever changed. If you come in, you said it the other day, if you come in with something, you have to validate it. If not, it gets torn apart. Now, how it gets torn apart, nasty, mean, whatever. But that's something everybody loved the show about. They loved it because that's what was done. When Jaron watched the show, that's what he loved about it. So now all of a sudden it's bad to make people stand on their claims and validate them because it's a flat earther that comes with something. The other day, the guy said it. I'm a flat earther trying to push the downward vector. Nathan didn't give him a break. So what's changed?
I don't know why you think Jaron got any points in that debate. Why are you even worried about it? He totally agreed with Nathan.
No, I'm not saying he got any points. All I'm trying to understand is what has changed. Everything is the same.
Nothing. These are false accusations. I don't even raise your voice or get worked up about it.
Hey, I hear drama. What's up?
Hey,
I'm
No
sorry.
drama. Just saying nothing has changed at all. But all
Don't worry,
of a sudden,
John.
FED bad.
Don't worry, John. This is a fourth dimension drama.
Neil.
It doesn't exist in the three-dimensional world we live in.
Neil, can I put can I put a word in?
Who's this?
This is Chaiki. He's
No,
bored over there.
let
in
him
Japan.
talk.
Neil,
Let him
Neil,
talk. Who is
Neil.
this?
Neil, what have
Oh, you're Neil now.
any of the panel? I'm talking.
Oh my
I'm talking
gosh.
over me. We're talking over me.
That was a good one.
Neil, name one thing that any of the panel member ever verified for themselves.
Well,
One.
that you are
Not
Chaiki
1,000,
and
not
Neil is
2,
Neil.
not 10. One.
I'll start
it.
there. Yeah,
Chaiki,
you're
go make
Chaiki, Neil
coffee
is
for
Neil. We
everybody.
verified it.
Gas pressure out of container. Validation. Can't have gas pressure without containment. Validation.
How did you
End of
validate
story.
it? How did you validate it? What was the method?
It's a necessary antecedent. Anytime you demonstrate anything
You
with gas
didn't
pressure,
validate it, right?
you need a
The
container.
necessary, you read in
Okay,
the
Chaiki,
dictionary.
demonstrate gas
You
pressure
want
out
to
of
be
container, Chaiki.
indoctrinated. You read it in the dictionary and you parroted. What have you
No, I work with
validated?
it. I work with it daily. You don't want to listen. I work with it daily. I have to bring my gases in a container to put them in the air conditioner. I
Okay.
can't carry them in my hand.
Fair.
That's just one.
But that the thing that you have to bring them in
Stop
a
stuttering.
container doesn't mean a gas pressure must have a container.
Yes, it does, because there's no examples of a container not being
Yes, there
necessary.
is. You want me to
I
prove
just-
Chaiki, you're
one?
done. Chaiki, you've been done for years.
Hold on a
Listen,
second. Hold on.
there's
Hold
not-
on. Everyone
Right
stop a
now.
second. I heard him say that there is an example of gas pressure without a container, which is going to be beyond, presumably, his religious fundamentalist sky vacuum belief. So what's your example of gas pressure without a container?
The one that Blue Marble did.
Which one? Hold on.
With four containers.
Everyone shut up. Go ahead, Chaiki. Tell us all about it.
Open container.
Sorry.
How you all do?
What did you say? Open container?
Open, yes. The
So
top
you're saying his
is missing.
open container was a demonstration of gas pressure without a container. The open container showed how you don't need a container.
Open. You put the
Container. The open container annihilates this absolute garbage because the open container would be the container that you require to have the gas pressure. So it would actually be an example that affirms our position that a container was and is required and was used in that example.
Well, in my room, which is not a container.
So you're going to concede, because I'm not going to tolerate your shit today, Chaiki. I'm not in the mood for it. So your example included a container to try and debunk the assertion that you don't need a container. You provided an example that had a container in it. So I need you to concede your stupidity.
Shut up.
No, just the silence. No, typical baller.
The thing is, Nathan, that I give your audience a bit more credit than you do. And they will choose who to listen to.
All right. How many
Not me.
subscribers
Not
does the
you.
Chaiki channel have? As you've appealed to a populum fallacy. How many
What does
subscribers
it have to do with anything? What does
You're
it
the
have
one who
to do
brought it
with
up.
anything?
You said you give my audience more credibility and that they listen to you. I'm asking, all right, how much do the audience listen to you? We can qualify that in those terms, like Jaron tried to qualify it with me, right? He's got a bigger audience, therefore people listen to him more. So let's see you do that, like Jaron did.
No, I don't preach.
No, I didn't ask if you preached. I asked how big your audience was based on its subscriber count.
Hear me, hear you, and they choose who to believe.
No, people are subscribed to me because they choose to believe me. Not you, Dumbo.
Not necessarily.
Sorry, are you really having this whimsical fantasy right in front of the channel owner, telling him that I, meaning you, Chaiki, give your, meaning my, Nathan Oakley 1980, the channel host and namesake of the channel, more credibility? You are nuts. Just shut up, you stupid.
Actually, Nathan, if I could respond, Nathan.
I give them more credit than you.
Chaiki, one
give
moment,
them
please.
Zero credit.
One moment, Chaiki. You do bring credibility to this channel. Thank you, Chaiki. It is true. You being here brings credibility to our channel. Our arguments stand up. Our housekeeping questions stand up. So when you come in to challenge them and lose, you bring credibility to this channel. You are right.
No, I usually
Chucky, the worst thing you can
pay
do for your
attention
ball
to
religion
the
is be here.
housekeeping channels.
Again, Chaiki. No, only when someone else is talking. Okay.
Yeah, the worst thing they can do for their heliocentric religion is come here. Just don't engage. You know, y'all already got 99% of the world. Why are you coming in here and saying things that are contradictory?
Ask him.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, I am.
That was directed at you, Chaiki.
Yes, it's fun.
For fun, fair enough.
It's fun to say that I have such a fundamental religious belief that I will say you can have gas pressure without a container while showing someone using 2 containers, demonstrating that you need a container.
Vaxy Waxy, please can you put yourself on mute? Hello, Vax XXX.
It's fun talking to you.
Thanks. It's infuriating talking to you because you never concede even when you're wrong. Like literally the rebuttal to you don't need a container included the word describing the container used to make your example, but you still won't concede that. So container needed then.
Right.
No, open container, right? Open container. Yeah, container.
Yeah, container, a floor. Floor container?
So you needed a container to have the gas pressure that you measured inside the container, where the valve had a little pressure gauge in it. That was a container that the valve
made
went
of
into.
air.
You see, it is just when someone else is talking then. A bit like Jaron. You need to directly talk through the thing that annihilates your position. Yeah, the thing that was measuring the pressure measured it via a hole in the container, the open container, but the container nonetheless, making you wrong about not needing a container because the measured pressure was the pressure inside the container.
My container
Yeah,
has.
So, yeah, that's as good as I get, is it? After you've just chanted through me. No apology for how rude you've been chanting through the conclusion that made you wrong. No, just And then what? Ignore it entirely and move on to another point, presumably, right?
No, it's not. I'm not moving to another point. My container has no walls. Its walls is the air inside it.
Right, if it doesn't have any walls, how do you, for instance, define its volume? If you're going to say it's a container, how would you define the volume of your container with no walls?
Who care about the volume?
Well, if we're going to calculate things like pressure, we're damn well going to need the volume of the container to calculate it, you stupid clown. So if we're talking about pressure, it's the pressure exerted on the walls of the container. That's what gives you the calculation. That's why in your example of an open container, you had a little device to measure the pressure inside the container, so it could be pressing on something. So yeah, we'd need the volume.
Tell me when I can speak. Huh?
What's the volume of your container? How did you calculate the volume of your wall-less
Why do I need to
oxymoron
calculate
container? So something without containment. You see, before you get the question, you start answering me. You've asked me when you can talk. You can talk at the conclusion of my question rather than the middle of it. Is that not obvious? So your oxymoron wall-less container, how are you going to calculate the volume of this wall-less oxymoron containerless container? Okay, that's where his argument ends, because that's where he's got nothing. Seemed like he had something when he was talking straight through the top of me, didn't it? Seemed like he got a point to make, like he's got a worthy interruption. He didn't. He hadn't. When there's a long, protracted silence after being asked how he's going to calculate the volume for a hypothetical wall-less container that won't contain anything, he can't. It's nonsense.
No, simply you didn't give me the cue to talk. And you say
You don't understand
it's
when
your
the end of a
turn,
question
Charlie.
comes. Wow. You seriously need me to punctuate the end of a question by saying that is the end of the question you may now answer. Are you seriously in any way suggesting that your little obfuscation tactic that you're now using is to suggest that you can hardly bring yourself to talk? Yeah, how utterly absurd.
Otherwise,
At least he
I'm
admits he doesn't
rapusing you.
understand social cues.
My question was about the volume of the containment, not about whether or not you're rumpusing me. But again, we're going on a little red herring dance, aren't we? I'm really ill,
Red
by the way, in
herring. I
case you
tried
can't tell.
I try
I'm
to
really
answer. You
rough.
don't let me.
I'm really poorly today, so if you're going to win, this is your best chance. I'm telling you that now.
I'm not going
Go,
to win
Chucky.
anything.
Go, Chucky, answer it now. Go.
I feel like garbage. I feel like
Well,
dying.
barometers that measure pressure do not require the volume of the container they're measuring it in. Usually, it's done
But
in
that's not a
open air,
calculation, Chucky.
in the atmosphere. Why people talk over me?
Because you're
Atmosphere,
not
what's
giving the
that?
calculation. You're talking about a measurement. You don't know the difference.
It was my turn to talk. Didn't you hear?
You were asked for a calculation of the volume.
I
You've
didn't
not given
ask
that.
anything from you. I don't remember addressing
I
you.
don't care what you asked. I'm telling you, you didn't answer the question. You went on a red herring.
And you don't come on this show and dictate what goes on, buddy.
You must accept my red herring. How dare you interrupt my fallacy? How outrageous. No. If you're utilising a fallacy and ignoring the question, and the fallacy's the way you're obfuscating the question, it's going to get highlighted pretty quickly.
Go ahead.
He did. You just
The device, the
moaned.
barometer, does not care about any volume of anything.
So what you're
Yeah,
doing
but
is
that's
something
not a calculation.
further
He
to
asked you
that.
for the calculation.
Further to that, Chaiki, I already said that we wanted a demonstration as opposed to an appeal to your religious belief. Your religious belief is that we have a sky vacuum and gas pressure and no need for containment. Well, your appeal to say, well, look, here's me measuring the atmospheric pressure and what the sphere-shaped air in a vacuum that's not dispersing into it in violation of the law of nature that would dictate the antecedent-consequent relationship of gas pressure and containment. No, you're not going to point at the sky and say, look, I'm just measuring this pressure. Therefore, there's a vacuum. That's begging the question.
Not begging the question, I'm measuring the pressure.
Of the atmosphere. Atmo what now? Sphere-shaped air? Oxymoron. Begging the
Measuring
question.
the pressure of the air.
Yeah, that you say is sphere-shaped. Sphere-shaped air that we don't
Did
have.
I say sphere? Did you hear me say sphere?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, your audience, I give them credit. I urge them to go back on the stream and see if I said a sphere anywhere.
So you
You
didn't.
said atmosphere.
Sorry, you
Yeah,
didn't hear.
you did.
You didn't hear Neil objecting to it because you were objecting.
Correct.
I said my.
You're stuttering now, wanker. Yeah, it's now being pointed out to the. If they do go back on the stream, they'll realise how wrong you were. Atmo what now? Atmo what now? Sorry, what did you say? Atmo what now? I didn't quite hear.
I didn't say atmo.
Sorry, that sounds very high pitched. Yeah, you said sphere. You assumed the air takes a sphere shape when you said atmo sphere. So should they go back and listen out for when you say atmo what now? Sorry, was it atmosphere-shaped air in a vacuum? Not proven. Your religious belief. I told you not to appeal to right at the start of this conversation. You think it's unreasonable and that they should go back and see where you said sphere because you didn't beg the question of sphere-shaped air, a.k.a. atmosphere. You didn't do that, right,
I didn't
Chaiki?
beg this no question.
So is this Jaran tactic where I humiliate you because you've told my audience to go back and listen for where you said sphere? We point out that Neil objected when you said sphere, and now you feel that talking through me is going to overcome that. Is it the Jaran tactic? Just talking through the objection, right? Maybe after I've done this, you can blame the mute button I used to stop you doing it. Yeah, that's right, Chaiki. The moment you start ranting through the top of me annihilating your position, I just close the Discord line, so you can't do that anymore.
I urge you to find.
You just need to shut the fuck up, you stuttering cunt.
Urge you. I never complain.
You're talking through me, meaning I've now got a, what, the fundy mute button? No, I'm making my point. But you think it's needed to talk through the top of me? You do, because you're losing. Therefore, it's better to just talk through the top of me. I can put an end to that. But when I do, you fundies who are getting annihilated like to appeal to me stopping you interrupting me. You feel that carry some weight with it. No, it doesn't, Chaiki. No. As I conclude that you've appealed to your fundamentalist sphere belief by way of something you've denied later on and said, I haven't assumed sphere. Yeah, you have. And me pointing that out will be met with constant interruptions, a.k.a. your fundy mute button, Chaiki, because you've lost. Yes, you did beg the question of sphere. I've went and rewound it. I heard Neil interrupting you and you ignoring him.
There's that laugh. There's that guilty laugh.
Right, did you want to maybe appeal to the mute button? Maybe you lost this argument because of the mute button, Chaiki. Go ahead. Appeal to it. Off you go.
I never
Sure
complained. I complimented you for not using the mute button.
No, you were using it, you daft twat. Are you fucking retarded? You were muting me, you stupid spastic. Right? You're a fucking idiot. I didn't accuse you of it. No, while you're doing it to me, man, you are just Jaran. What? I haven't accused you of it. No, you're doing it, you stupid fool.
You said go ahead, Nathan. Who is fundy muting now?
You.
You?
I was concluding that when you told the audience to go back,
you
there's
were
that fundy mute
concluding
button.
while
You hear
I
it,
was
ladies and
talking,
gentlemen? Immediate fundy muting. Immediate. So I closed down the line, so I'd have to raise my voice and talk over him fundy muting me. Now I can calmly point out how the sphere that he assumed, yeah, he's still doing it. Look, when I open the line, Chaiki will immediately interrupt me. See, I can control that. It's not me being unreasonable, wanting to actually conclude a point of one. And it's not reasonable for Chaiki or Jaran to chant straight through the top of it. Now, on my own show, yeah, I can put a stop to that. That's right. I can mute that line. So I can conclude for the third time. Chaiki's not listening. His tact is that when he's still doing it, even though you can hear it as an audience member, he's not listening to it. So he doesn't have to address it. That's the logic. And then when he says, oh, well, I won, I was just muted. When I listened back, Nathan was concluding the point that he won with. And I wasn't being heard chanting straight through the top of him. He's got a mute button. What, to stop your chanting straight through the top of me? Yeah, I have. So I conclude that you did say sphere, Chaiki, and like the scumbag weasel lying bastard that you are having fun here, you'll never admit that your claim that going back through the timeline to see where you assumed your fundamentalist religious sphere belief by way of atmosphere, oxymoron, sphere-shaped air that you assumed, you won't admit it, you'll chant through me with your mute button. Clear?
Showtime.
Indeed. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, D Rose, Chocolate, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Hello, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good evening. Good to have you.
Morning.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
How about any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
Not yet. They say they're science. Are you kidding me? No viable hypotheses. We're not even asking for experiments.
Nobody in their field uses the scientific method, right? But they could. They just don't do it because guesswork and seat of the pants stuff is good enough.
Okay. Ask a more broad question. Why do we ask this? Why is this a housekeeping question?
Because it's claimed to be natural science.
What is?
Yeah, when in fact it's pseudoscience.
Right.
Cosmology, astrophysics.
Precisely. We're being told, and I say we, it's the royal we, because it's the people at large, not us, are being told that science proves you're on a globe. And when there's a problem with that spinning water ball flying through a vacuum at an absolutely astronomical speed, they tell you that there's a gravitational force holding you to it. And how do we know? Well, science showed this gravity. That's what they'll tell you. Then they'll produce their gravimeters and they'll affirm the consequent and they'll lie about having scientific evidence. That's how it works. So why would they use the word science? I mean, of all the words, why not just say proof? Why say science when they're telling you that they've weighed Jupiter? Why say science rather than, here's my proof of what I bullshit about? Why that word?
Because science is how you get to that proof.
Because it's empirical.
It's empirical. Because there's science is intricately tied in with it that it is physically proven, right? That's why.
Because science is empirical.
Perfect. There it is. Because science, when adhering to the scientific method, is empirical. So science is not a man, it's not a community, it's not a consensus, it's a method. Now, the method offers empiricism if you adhere to it correctly. The way it does it is by offering up a logical suppositional statement with the antithesis alongside it. So A will cause B is your suppositional statement, but in the hypothesis, scientific prediction, it also states the zero difference result, also known as a null, which is A won't cause B. Now, that's the only outcome. A will either cause B or not cause B. And when you vary it, it either causes it or doesn't. Now, you can, if you're trying to have this explained to you with something very simplistic like water boiling as a result of heat being applied as the causal factor, you could brace against that and find all the reasons why heat won't cause water to boil. Yes, you can do that. You can find all the reasons why you might have an incompetent scientist, someone applying the scientific method, and therefore the test is invalid. You can do that too. However, the process includes systematic experimentation, which is to say, you may vary something and find you get a zero difference result where countless hundreds of others might see otherwise, demonstrating one thing only, that you are incompetent or have no common sense as an experimental tester, as the person actually varying and manipulating that which they assumed, rightly or wrongly, in their hypothesis would cause the effect. Okay. So yes, you've got incompetent people out there, and that's why the process continues to this day. Okay. So we all know now that we've got a method for proving things empirically. Now let's hear from Michio Kaku, as he was already quoted.
You're not going to believe this. In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
So, it's very useful for astrophysicists and astronomers to assert that they are doing the science, when in reality they are not empirically validating cause and effect relationships based on natural phenomena. In fact, they only have step one, observe natural phenomena. From there, it's by the seat of your pants, it's guesswork. They're not adhering to the scientific method. Well, when you have a bullshit claim, it's far easier to convince a member of the public that you have empirically proven your gravity claim by saying it's science. And people nod along and say, oh, right, yeah, science. Yeah, so it's proven then. Because you were trained in 4th and 5th and 6th grade how the scientific method does prove things. Doesn't mean that the people who claim it have actually got any proof to back what they say is science. And it doesn't mean that science doesn't prove things. It just means that charlatans and scammers use those words to claim they've proved something, when in reality they haven't been through the method. Do we want to continue with what we were doing yesterday, which is covering the final part of Jaren's little moans when I left?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Let's just get it over with.
Me, gentlemen.
Where was there an add-on?
Thank you for having me. Where did we get to? Did you take the timestamp?
I think you said last was 2:11. I can't remember precisely, but we'll figure it out.
I just want to say, Nathan, what you
You're
just said.
standing
You said it
on
before.
the earth.
Say again?
I just want to say what you just said, you said it so many words in other ways, but what you just said is the most point-on, simplistic way of expressing the bastardization of the word science.
I do try. No, I mean, thank you.
Earth. You look up at the star. Oh, it's at 45 degrees. They're claiming that you can't look up at something in the sky and say it's 45 degrees unless it's flat. Well, what if you lived on a sphere? If you lived on a sphere.
Shout out to Paul McLean. Welcome to Penguin. Thank you for joining. Put that on screen just so you can see it whizzing on by. People like to see what they've paid for going onto the screen. There it is. Thank you very much, Paul.
What if we lived on a sphere?
I think
There's
we
no
covered
flat
this. I
surfaces
don't want
on
to
a
repeat what
sphere,
we've done
Jared.
already. Did we not cover this yesterday?
Yeah, I think you went a little further in the after show, so just scoot along a little bit.
He's just saying, well, you have enough people. Well, you just told this guy that once something's proven, we don't need to touch it again. So at what point in the story of you doing all these experimentations, at what point can you say, now it's proven?
I don't remember covering this. Should we go from here? That'll do.
Sounds good.
Okay, so could you give an example?
Water boiling at 100 degrees at sea level.
No, we wouldn't say that. We would say heat causes water to boil. How many times have I have to tell you that?
If heat is the variable, then water boils, deep in the variable, 100 degrees C at sea level. No, if heat is the variable, then water does not boil, deep in the variable, 100 degrees C.
Source shit. We don't say that.
But what we're actually doing is arguing about whether water boils at 100 degrees C or not.
No, we wouldn't say that. See if these have changed. You ready? Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level, 1 atmosphere of pressure, 101 kilopascals, or this is from University of Rochester.
So anyway, I don't need to play that more, but there's tons of examples of them doing exactly this. And he did more of it today.
Anybody struggling to follow along? Doing what?
I
think
can
I'd react
answer
if it
this.
was a bit more specific.
What it is there's discoveries you can make when using the scientific method, right? See, you found the cause, but then after you find the cause, you can then quantify aspects within the experiment. But it's not about quantity, right? You can quantify it, but you don't have to. And Jaren's trying to mix the two.
Okay.
Everything that he said does not jive with what he's claiming, which is originally it was a test. It only proves things.
That's correct. It's embedded in the logic.
But then he's like, well, you have to do it a bunch of times.
Yes, that's correct. That's embedded in the method also.
Wait. He just played himself. Oh, then you got to do it a bunch of times. But didn't he just say a few minutes ago? Oh, but once you do the test, you don't ever have to do it again.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
I think that's what he's trying to show. I'm saying, because he said he'd go back. Presumably, this is him going back and saying, "Here you go. Here's where he said once it's validated, that's it. It's done." Well, yeah. Maybe I should have said that to him at the time, but obviously, hindsight and all that. Well, once you've validated your null, you haven't actually achieved what you were hoping to achieve. You're trying to... No, I'm sure I did say this to him. You're trying to validate the alternative. You're trying to prove the cause. I remember saying, you're trying hard to prove it, as opposed to put one candle underneath. I did say this to him. Yeah, I'm just going to end up repeating myself.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. He's accepted the qualification. Now he's arguing about the way it's quantified. He's saying that 100 degrees C at sea level. Well, you can change the container and cause water to superheat and not boil at 100 degrees C. And he's ignoring the definition of what boiling actually is, and he's trying to argue with the quantification of
that's
it
my
instead
fault.
of the causal mechanism.
I'm going to take some responsibility with this because I've decided which route to educate Jaron on. I've tried many different methods. They've all failed. This one's the latest. Well, that's my fail. I've gone, how do I counter his assertion that it doesn't prove? Focus on the hypothesis. Step 2 in our short list of what you do in science. Okay, strictly step 3, because in that particular debate I went through the research method to sort of counteract his point that, well, do we just do it once? Well, no, you might go back and see who else has done it, and then you pass it off to other systematic experimentation. But what I didn't do was hyper-focus on step 1. Now, again, I did do this. I told him about going to the hot spring and going, oh, it seems a bit hot, because you're trying to prove the cause of the phenomena you've observed. So if the phenomena you've observed isn't something in a sealed container, or however he tries to get around this, it's like, no, you're trying to figure out why that, in this case, if I'm comparing it to a natural phenomena, hot spring occurs, right? Well, if you suddenly put it into a totally alien scenario, you're like, well, how is that comparable to what you were trying to figure out the cause of? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yesterday, he said, this is what Chocolate was trying to say. Yesterday, he said, well, if you do it right, it does prove. That's what he said yesterday on the same stream here. And so here QE is citing something, and now he wants to throw the citation under the bus somehow. But he said yesterday, if you do it right, it does prove something. And we all heard him say it.
Yeah, as long as you do the experiment correctly. Yeah, that was a concession I got out of him.
Well, then why would you have to, if it proves things, why would you need to do it twice?
To rule out the incompetence of the person validating it, to rule out their hypothesis being invalid in the first instance, to rule out their apparatus being incorrectly set up, and to make absolutely empirically validated. That's what you do. You keep doing it. Even once it's proven, you can still continue to do experiments. People still do them. Right? So no, you don't stop. Oh my God. Go on.
I'm sorry, man. It's just now he's just babbling. He's not even making sense because now he's saying, oh, if you proved it, why would you need to do it twice? When he was 2 minutes ago mad that you supposedly you were saying that if you prove something, you don't ever have to touch it again. Like the guy's confused. I don't understand this.
Well, QE did qualify this on his show yesterday. And again, this is all failings on my part to not disseminate the information concisely and consistently enough for it to be absorbed by Jaron. So I'll take responsibility. And when QE was listening to me say that, he was like, no, it's his problem for being stupid. No, he's ignorant, and I'm trying to educate him. So this is down to me. I've got to take ownership of my failure in that regard.
Come on. Stop that.
I do.
No, I'll tell you why. I
haven't made my point yet, but go ahead.
No, listen. How long have we been talking about this? How long have we been trying to prove this? How long have we trying to communicate using different language methods, different examples? A long time. Yes, you are right to a point. If it's in the early stages of trying to get a thought across to someone else, maybe you could have said it better. After all these years, after all this time, you know what? It's just he doesn't want to know. He wants to play the ignorant fool. You're never going to reach him when he's fighting you. So don't blame yourself because you didn't do something right or wrong.
Okay, well, I do anyway. I'm going to keep trying, and it's like, well, if I haven't managed to get this particular aspect of the point across to him, then that's a failing on my
My
part.
gosh, Nathan, he made your point for you when he said when it's done right, it proves things. The debate was over right then.
Okay.
It proves something. So anybody who can't see through this guy, more power to you. Watch that show and continue to go around telling people that you can't get an angle to a star from a curved baseline. What does that even?
Projection. Anyone can't see through this guy. You're the guy we're trying to figure out. You're double speaking here.
Well, he just challenged that an angle is two straight lines meeting at a vertex when he said you could.
Yep.
So yeah, he just said that you can get an angle. Well, he didn't say that. Hold on, because they like to hyper focus on things. He said going around saying you can't get an angle from a curved baseline is stupid.
Can't see through this guy.
The definition of an angle,
more power to you.
Two straight lines.
Watch that show and continue to go around telling people that you can't get an angle to a star from a curved baseline.
Wow.
Right. The definition of an angle is two straight lines meeting at a vertex. That means your baseline has to be straight.
Sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? You want to bet about it?
Please,
am I sure the definition of what an angle is, Chaiki? Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
that's
you're
how
sure.
it's defined.
You're absolutely sure. And if I show you that you're wrong, you will admit that you're wrong.
You're going to show me that the definition of angle is not.
Don't ask me questions. I asked you a question. Answer it. Will you admit you're wrong if I show you you're wrong?
Well,
you're going to show me that angle is not an angle? What are you talking about?
Okay, let's get some rules. Chaiki's trying to lay down the law. Let him. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll enforce your law. Chaiki, Chaiki, I'm siding with you. Understand when someone's siding with you. If you're willing to concede that you did definitely beg the question of Sphere, where you said we could go back and do the recording, when and if you show that angles aren't two lines meeting at a vertex, yeah, I'll lay down the law and make sure he concedes that he was wrong about two lines meeting at a vertex being an angle. Now go ahead, show how he's wrong.
Euclid Elements, Book 3, Definition 7. Now, if you don't know this definition, you're in trouble. You don't know geometry. And you talk about things you don't know.
No, you're not reading out any definitions. You're starting off a string of ad homs and poisoning the well fallacy. Just read out the definition. Otherwise, I'm going to start demanding that you show it us. Because it sounded like you're about to read out the citation, and then you started an ad hom string.
I'll show it to you.
Telling us about what we should know. That isn't reading out the definition that you got, and you mumbled the citation source. Want to try that again?
Told you and push the talk. When I'm looking for something, I can't speak. You wait. It will show. Don't worry.
Okay. So what are you doing? You're posting it in Discord, right?
What he's going to do, and I told McToon he's going to do the same thing. He's going to define different points along an arc using a straight line and say, see, I got it from a curved baseline. No, you're changing the angle at every point along that arc, but you're drawing a straight line to get that angle. That's how tangency works.
It's not an angle. Tangents.
Hold on, we got a new. It's actually called noob. What was that?
Yes, Nathan, how is your computer? I'm just new, who don't know nothing about anything, but I know 90 degrees, man.
Indeed. So what was your point? Because aside from my computer, which is great, this is week 3 of it being completely consistent. But yeah, what was your point?
Latest wind blows on, yeah?
We're stepping over each other. I think there's a slight delay between our lines. Just one more time, what was your point?
Oh no, we're just waiting for this presentation of the definition of angles can be calculated.
You don't see it. Are you blind? Are you blind?
Oh, I think he's posted it now, so now we're blind. Thanks for letting us know.
Wait. In chat, Sir, is it in chat?
Where else?
Ebo, just for 1 sec while he's going through his citation that I'm going to bring up on screen now. Can you just pop yourself on mute because you've got a lot of wind noise? Thanks. Thank you. Right, I've got it up on screen. Definition 6 or definition 7? Do you want to read it out?
No, you'll read it out.
Which one?
7.
An angle of a segment that is contained by a straight line and a circumference of a circle.
Booyah!
Right, an angle of a segment.
So you can have an angle to a curve. As
Doesn't
much
say-
as I know this, the circumference is not straight.
You are a belligerent
Guys, can you let him
retard.
just
Oh
make
my
his...
God.
Talk all of you at once. At once, talk all of you.
Go ahead, make your conclusion. It doesn't say that, but go ahead. Try and make your conclusion that it does.
Pardon me, conclusion? There's no conclusion. It's black on white.
An angle
An
of
angle
a
between
segment...
a straight line and a curve.
An angle of a segment is that contained by a straight line and a circumference of a circle. Doesn't say anything
Yeah,
about
if we repeat it
an
100
angle
times, it
from...
will sink, Nathan.
Why are you interrupting me? What's going on?
Just
Why
that's
not?
just when you calculate the arch, you know,
Just
arch.
Just.
arch.
Why are you
You
now
can-
interrupting
you-
him? What's going on, Chaiki? Do you not like it when we point out that it doesn't say?
Interrupting him. What he said.
But it
He
doesn't
was
say you can get an angle from a sphere on it.
interpreting. He's expressing his thoughts. No, I bring you facts.
Yeah, but the fact you asked for was how an angle can come from a sphere. And this doesn't say that.
That's Euclid. You going to argue with Euclid? Go right ahead.
He's not arguing. He's pointing out that it doesn't say that, what you said it said.
What did I say? It says.
Segment.
What did I say? It says. An
Well, what
angle.
question did
You
we
can
ask,
have an angle
genius?
to. You can have an angle to a curve. They say that.
You say it
Not
says...
to a curve.
Okay, hold on. You say it says you can have an angle to a curve. So the words we're looking for are angle to a curve. Definition 7. An angle of a segment is that contained by a straight line and a circumference of a circle. Doesn't say that, Chaiki.
Circumference is curved. Nathan.
Doesn't say you can get an angle from it. Doesn't say that.
That's deduction.
Okay.
Do you know the difference between to a curve and from a curve?
So I
Reading
just
is
exposed you
fundamental.
ignorance about geometry.
Okay,
Go
fine.
right ahead. Continue with your nonsense.
Let's just say, okay, fine. I accept at face value that you claim that this proves you can get an angle to a sphere. Okay, I'll accept that at face value. Okay, now relate this to the practical application of the acquisition of an angle using a sextant from a sphere when you're on a boat. Just explain how an angle of a segment is that contained by a straight line and a circumference of a circle relates to the use of a sextant when measuring an elevation angle, for example. Do you want to just directly connect them so we can understand? Because currently I don't.
Did I say it's related? If I said it's related, I just pointed the fact that you say that you must have a straight baseline and you don't.
Yes, that's right. An angle is two straight lines.
So how come you can have an angle to a circumference?
No, it isn't.
if
It's
one
an
of them
angle
is
of a
curved?
segment. It says it's the first words. So a segment.
It's an angle.
We like a cake.
Yeah, so what?
So you understand that if
An
you've got a
angle.
cake, why am I being talked to? You don't understand your own citation that does not say you can get an angle from a curve. You can't. But when you take a segment of a cake, 2 points, straight lines, 2 knife cuts into the cake will meet at a vertex and be an angle. But that would be from the center of the cake to the outside. That's what a segment is. But that isn't in any way referencing how you can get an angle from a curve specifically in reference to elevation angle measurement when measuring a flat baseline, because one of the lines of the angle, not the cake segment, the baseline with a GP under a star. That's not the section of a cake.
Nathan, just showed you don't know geometry.
No, you didn't. We asked you to show how you get an angle from a curve. That would be two straight lines meeting at a vertex. And you've shown how you can get an angle from a segment of a sphere. Well, nobody's cutting into the centre of Earth to get angles from it when you measure the baseline as flat for one of the lines of the angle. So this doesn't comport with your claim. It doesn't back it in any way. And it certainly doesn't say you can get an angle from a curve. You can't. If you could, you'd have a citation that said you could. You don't. This isn't it.
Nathan, that's why I have definition 6 there, so you will understand what segment is. You don't need to go to the center of anything.
Yeah, I know what a segment is.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Because you said I need to go to the center, and I don't.
So what segment are you measuring when you take an elevation angle? Where's the curve of
You
a
take a
segment?
circle.
I'm not going to get to ask a question about your example. Just straight through the top of my question, right?
That's the segment.
I didn't ask my question yet. You seem to be answering me before I've asked.
Because you don't know to ask.
Because you don't need to be asked the question, because you'll definitely lose if you actually listen to it.
No,
won't you?
because you don't.
No, because you're just not going to listen now, going to ramble indefinitely while I try and ask my question, right?
You don't know to ask the right question.
Oh, right. You can telepathically tell what my question's going to be, answer it, and know that I've asked the wrong question when you've already tried to answer it in the middle of it. So, when taking an elevation angle measurement, where would the curved section of the segment be in that elevation angle measurement?
You see, you asked the wrong question.
Last chance. You've put a citation, it's still on screen, specifically referring to segments, and I have asked where the curve of the segment of an elevation angle measurement would be. Go.
I didn't talk about no elevation angle.
I'm talking about it. That's why we talk about angle measurements. We're playing a section from Jeranism's video where he's decrying them. That's specifically the subject matter. Are you dense?
No, the subject
is elevation angles. We're reacting to Jeran talking about them, dumb fuck baller. Shut up, sit down, mute him. If you can't keep up with a bloody conversation, want to interject about angle measurements when detailing them from a flat baseline that Jeran is specifically talking about, and you can't keep up, then you won't take part in the conversation anymore, Chikey. Sit down, shut up. God damn.
But what does that even mean? Why is the baseline important? You're getting in.
Did you hear him talk about baseline, you stupid idiot? Hello? Chikey, can't you keep up? Are you really this slow? Literally, first words out of his mouth are about a baseline. That's what we're reacting to here. You want to be part of the team and have part of the fun? Try and keep up.
An angle to the star.
Did you hear that bit, you stupid clown? Are you now going to tell me that you're not talking about elevation angle measurements to stars when that is very specifically the subject on the table? Chikey. Cat got your tongue, you stupid clown? Idiot.
Can you look up in the sky and say that star's at 45 degrees?
Just to conclude Chikey's stupid, idiotic interruptions where he couldn't keep up with the actual subject matter at hand, his definition with respect to a segment would be the baseline and the dome of the heavens. That would be the circle segment if you're going to infer one. But that still implies a flat, level baseline for the angle because you're the vertex with your sextant. The other straight line goes out to the star. Now, if you want to imply the curve of the tool, then the curve would be between the angles in the sky. That would be the only curve to imply. Definitely the right question to be asking you, Chikey, because your curve's on the ground, not in the sky or through the tool. But that's how you've hijacked this measurement. You infer that the curve of the tool of the angle that you measure with a flat baseline, it's a necessity for an angle. The curve of the sky is now the curve of the ground. When you put that angle on a flat baseline in hell. in the centre of Earth at an equatorial plane that then makes the arc of the tool the ground. But that curved ground isn't where you're acquiring an angle from. And it certainly isn't the segment of a cake to the centre of Earth either. What it is a flat baseline, requiring that the straight line for one of those angles must be flat. Hope that's clear, Chaiki. Oh, in case this isn't clear, that's where you lost with your segment citation.
And the Polaris is 85. Can you say that? Okay, well, then you can do celestial navigation. Imagine that we lived on a sphere.
Why? So that what, you can say face where you lost to Toon because where you lost to Toon is actually correct. No, you just lost to Toon, Jeran. Don't start appealing to your audience to understand how Toon's hammering of you actually is true. He just didn't know how to overcome his argument. Don't now appeal to how right he was. Bloody hell, man. You're supposed to be a flat earther.
If what they're saying is true, then you could not do celestial navigation because you live on a sphere.
That's correct.
Pause. They don't even claim to be doing it from the surface of the sphere. They draw a tangent plane and say we're actually getting it from the center of the Earth, the equatorial plane. Jaren, go do some good research. Find out they never used a curved surface either.
No, they don't. They need a flat Earth even when they transpose their imaginary tangent plane they're not getting an angle from.
Well, that's ridiculous. If you lived on a sphere that was very giant and you treated each location as flat.
Sorry, what was that, Jaren? So if you live on a sphere but treat it as flat, so it's got to be treated as flat, so it needs to be flat to do this exactly as we're claiming. And in your, what, rebuttal of our claim that it needs to be flat, you assume you're on a big sphere that's actually flat, and that makes your annihilation by the hands of Toon mean that it's dangerous to not understand how it works on a sphere when a section of it is flat. Hello, Jaren. Did you not learn that a spherical surface has no flat surfaces on it at all? Making the point that you'd need a flat surface to do this absolutely valid and annihilating their globe claim because they don't have a flat surface to get this angle from. Yeah, I think it would.
But Jaren thinks it is because he said as long as it's very giant.
Hang on. It's so obvious here. Jaren, it isn't flat because it's a curved surface. That's why they put a tangent plane on it. They're never getting it from the curved surface because it can't. That's why in the books, it's always coming from the equatorial plane. And in order to transpose it to the surface, they got to put a tangent plane to match that baseline because you can't get it from the curved surface. That's why they have that tangent plane there.
Okay,
why not just do it from the curved surface?
On screen now. No, they don't get elevation angle measurements from a curved surface. That's absolutely moronic because you need two straight lines. Or what, they use a tangent when they do celestial navigation on a sphere. No, they don't do celestial navigation on a sphere, Jaren. They do it like this. It's on screen now. It's called the equatorial plane. It has the sky wrapped around a flat plane and then the globe wrapped around that. We call it the globe burger. Now, the globe burger has a nice, juicy steak that's flat in the middle of it. Now, that flat steak is the equatorial plane, and it extends out beyond the globe to the outside extremities of the stars being used on the flat plane at the centre of their globe. You ever hear them talking about parallel light rays? Yeah, Jaren, they're going to put them at the centre of the globe with you in hell at the Model 9 core to get this shit to work. Because it doesn't work on the spherical surface. The curve is the curve of the protractor you're measuring the angle with, and it's representative of this view of the stars. But that only works with the angle and the baseline being flat for them and us. If Jaren had the slightest idea how this bloody argument worked, he wouldn't be saying, of course it works on a sphere, when every single anti-flat earther who comes here and argues with us about this understands implicitly that you still need a flat plane, even when you're blagging everybody about it working somehow with a sphere. inside it on the equatorial plane. And now they take the, oh, well, I assume that they meet at an infinite distance even though they're parallel. Therefore, I can transpose them to the centre of Earth so that it can work with flat plane elevation angle measurements in hell, when the rest of the surface of the sphere that we're not standing on anymore is entirely redundant. Because you're looking at the stars and referencing the surface. And that ain't when you are where you're in the middle, like in this diagram. The equatorial plane. Plane! That's where they got all this stuff from, Jaron. The whole globe Earth blag is based on flat Earth measurements. All of it. So backwards engineering it, you find yourself on a flat plane with a bloody globe wrapped around it that isn't used. See all these markers matching up? Yeah? Inside the globe, you've got all those markings. They match these markings on the outside. But where are you actually standing to reference anything? If you're going to talk about being on, my bad, in a globe, you're standing right at the centre of it at the equatorial plane with it extending out beyond the globe's limits. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometres, all flat, right to the edges of this view. Your view. What you, Jaron, described as the dome of your perspective dome. That's this. Why aren't you getting it, you clown? I'm done.
Nathan, go to the very last picture, Master B. There's a bunch of them there you go to, but you don't have to, but unless you want to.
Yep.
You're on the last one?
Yep.
Imagine standing at a point A. Where's point A in this diagram?
Oh, it would be at the molten iron core. Hell. Now, this
Thank
doesn't
you.
seem to have a globe wrapped around A, but it could have.
Well, hang on. I'm going to point out something. Imagine standing at point A, equatorial plane, center. The center of Earth. Okay, identifies it right there. If we were to hold out our arms from the center of Earth now, pointing one at the vessel. See the boat? Not a star, not a sun. The boat is on the curve. At the vessel and one at the equator, horizontal baseline, 0 degrees. The angle between our arms will be the vessel's latitude. To put this in more correct terms, the vertical angle subtended between the equator. Baseline, 0, now the curved surface. They got a boat on the surface of the Earth where the navigator with the sextant is supposed to be, but they got the sextant navigator in the center of Earth marked as A.
This is the trick. You take your angles off a flat plane and then transpose them out onto a globe surface that you aren't standing on. So to get the measurements to give you this, you have to first measure a flat plane. That's how it's done. This is the #1 best flat Earth proof there is. Black Swan demolished the globe. This proves a flat plane. It's how it's practically applied, not only by us, flat earthers, not only by the general public, navigators, not only by the higher-ups in military, navigators, but also by every single baller who comes with this argument. They necessitate a flat plane at the centre of hell also, with it extending out. So when you see this central point, and let's say you're measuring this star, you're measuring a triangle to it. You're measuring its GP position. Where's that? Is it out in space? No, it's on the ground. On this circle. This is the equatorial plane. And your GP position, ground position, is here. At 90 degrees to your position. And when you look at the globe and where it is, well, your position's at the centre of hell. Now, when you look at it on 10th man's diagram, albeit for a different example being made, it's the same thing. This is the plane. This is what you're measuring. This is your baseline. Now, no, you don't have a picture of a globe that's totally surplus to requirements at the middle of it. But what you do have is the measurement off a plane for an angle. To say, this is where my boat is. What, out in the stars? No, That's how you transpose the angle measurement to the stars back onto the redundant globe that wasn't being used because you were at the center of it when you took the angle off the plane. So their globe requires this to work flat. That's where it's all come from. So the audacity of Jeran to say, oh, well, this just works on a globe. No, it doesn't, Jeran. Not even for them. In a globe for them. When they move the angles they've conjured from points they're not measuring when they look through their sextant at the horizon, they ain't measuring a tangent mirror. They're moving it to the centre of Earth because it only works on a plane. The globe just becomes redundant the moment you put it inside. Not that you got the angles from it in the first place. They couldn't have come from the top of the globe because it wouldn't give you an angle if it's a curved surface. Anyway, anybody got anything to add? We'll play a bit more.
I would like to say that I wouldn't call it redundant. I'd say detrimental or contradictory.
Yeah.
But
surplus.
I don't know about redundant.
Yeah, right. Redundant would imply that it's got some use after the fact, or if something goes wrong, you could use that as a backup. It doesn't have any use. You're going through a process to take the stars and map them back onto a surface that doesn't exist, that won't be used when you're measuring an angle. So it's completely surplus to requirements. Detrimental, if you will. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to comment as well. Go on, Adam.
This is what we were, when we were filling on Friday 10th, weren't we? We were kind of, somebody asked this question. That last diagram that you put up, it explains what I was trying to get over again, what the switcheroo is. And you described it nicely, actually. So if we go back to that last slide, yeah, lovely. The observer is now looking at themselves and the star. When you take the flat Earth elevation angle, which includes the observer and the star across the surface, where the flat surface we're going to navigate and use to establish a horizontal, there's no contradiction in there of reality. As soon as you apply it or try to strap it onto a ball or into a ball, as we're saying, we have a complete mismatch with reality. Because as just described, you're suddenly now at the center of a sphere, looking at yourself and the star that you were supposedly taking an angle at from looking at it, having defined a level. It really does show how elevation angles have got nothing whatsoever to do with a sphere or navigating a sphere, and how convoluted and, say, deceptive it has to be to get that elevation angle onto a sphere so people can conflate and get confused and think it has something to do with it. But that diagram's great, 10th. You use your elevation angle, transpose it to a sphere, so you're now looking at yourself and the star. It's a good example of how the switcheroo to
and here's how it actually represents itself. Good slide, 10th. So here's, again, a concept that Jeran has detailed many times. Your perspective view, how you'd measure it through a tool and how it would give you angles through that tool. Well, that's the celestial sphere that's wrapped around you on a flat plane. See how the tool makes a flat plane? That's what you're measuring. Now, not, oh, imagine you're on a sphere because Jeran the flat earther says, now imagine that this is really big, but then keep it flat. No, that doesn't work. Because when you extend it out thousands of miles to the GP position, as I showed earlier, it would be out in space if you imagine you're on a sphere, and then it's not a ground position anymore. Did you want to go through this next slide?
Yeah, go to the next two slides. Yeah, let me comment on the next two slides. So you see 90 degrees there. Well, the next slide shows that it's a box. A box has 4 straight sides, right? I mean, it could be rectangular, it could be whatever, but still a box. In this diagram, officially, they're showing you need a 90 degree, which is the previous picture. You see it there where the star is directly above a point on Earth, which is the GP, geographical position of the star. You also have the observer in the red with the sextant taking an angle to it. And you could see that the co-altitude is the zenith distance. Well, if you have a 90 at the bottom, guess what the co-altitude is? It's your zenith, not the star's zenith. And it's creating a baseline on top that matches the baseline on the bottom. This is so devastating because this is how it's done. You don't have a curved 90 like they tried to fool you with that bottom yellow arrow slightly bending, because then you can't put 90 there, because we know what a 90 is: perpendicular, vertical meeting horizontal. Last slide. I kid you not. This came from a navigation site that believes we live on a globe. Unbelievable picture. We did not do this. Can that work from a globe surface, which is the diagram you just saw before? Can that work? Is that a part of that box before you get the zenith distance by the co-altitude? Because you don't know the ship's zenith until you get the zenith of the sun first. All game over.
Anybody else?
You could then say, well, let's pretend we have a tangent here, and we're going to do an angle from right here, because it's the same whether it's flat or curved.
Really? Oh, what a chance that I happen to have this slide ready to put on when you say that, Jaron. So, okay, here's a tangent. Is the 90 degrees when you do this 3 times out in space for all of the stars? What are the GPs again? Oh, yeah, ground positions. They've got to have 90s below them. On the ground, this looks pretty much like that's not going to work, Jaron, even with your tangent. See how this fails miserably, Jaron? Yeah? So even if we do exactly as you said, and imagine a tangent, yeah, it doesn't have a 90-degree ground position below the star, though, Jaron, so it immediately fails on its arse. Imagine doing this 3 times. Now imagine that all of these lines are actually the ground, because they've got a ground position at 90 degrees below them, because it has to be. And this would represent tens of thousands of square miles in all directions from the boat on a flat plane. None of them will ever comport with a sphere, Jaron, because none of them will ever have 90 degrees at a ground position, ever. I mean, this is your retardation and failure in this subject matter, because you seem to think that by drawing a tangent, as depicted here, that somehow this works on the sphere. No, Jaron, they put it inside the sphere, but you don't understand this argument, do you? You think this is how they do it? No, Jaron, definitely not on a sphere. Not even for them, the ones making the argument for the ball. Just for you, who doesn't understand it. And how dangerous it is for me to not explain this garbage Toon hoodwinked you with? No, Jaron, you just got raped by Toon. It's not suddenly dangerous to not understand how you got hoodwinked by Toon. No, that's just you failing to realise how this doesn't work on a globe, ever, even for globers. Because you can't get 90 degree at the base of the star if it's a curved surface, Jaron. It's 2 straight lines. And the 90s parallel to your position.
Right, and the tangency is a red herring. Nobody's asking if you can get an angle to a sphere. It's from a curved surface, not to a curved surface, from.
The angle to the star would not...
Forgive that bit of misunderstanding. I think what's being demonstrated here is, I think I raised it yesterday, that Jaron seems to be confusing acquiring an elevation angle with doing celestial navigation. And he keeps using the term celestial navigation when he should only be limiting his critique to elevation angle. If you go back to 10 second to last slide, that's celestial navigation, and it's those axioms that Thames described. We take it away from 90. That's why they like to use a plumb line, because they can just get their angle there. But it's that relationship, because we are talking about 4 right angles. Yeah. And how that relationship means fundamentally one thing, which is the 2 zeniths, both yours and the stars, are on a flat baseline. So even if you've been hoodwinked into thinking that celestial navigation is acquiring an elevation angle and that's it, so you could, without further inquiry, accept somebody's word that you can do it on the surface of a ball or to the surface of a ball, that just demonstrates that you're not in any way understanding what celestial navigation is and the implications that celestial navigation has. And I would say most fundamentally, there's no divergence of those zeniths. They're parallel. The only way they can be parallel is in relation by the flat baseline you've created. They're both at 90 degrees to the surface you're navigating on. I think that's the big disconnect, that And that big critique of Jaron's lack of understanding, he's not even using the right words for what he's describing when he critiques celestial navigation.
But even when they drop a plumb line, right, you could just make an angle. That's fine. But the minute you invoke plumb, vertical, any of those words, you're immediately going to, it's going to be defined by the baseline.
Not change. But again, it's like pulling teeth. These are easy things. And what did I say that's so bad? It's like 8 years I've been at this.
All right, there you go.
Going through the ringer, you name it. And
what did I say that's so bad? So are we being unduly mean here? Or are we just generally pointing out you haven't got a clue about what you're talking about? When you're being mean to us and say, oh, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. And you're siding with the ballers. Can you understand our frustration, Jaron? Because all you've demonstrated to us, I think a lot of the audience, is that you do not understand the premise of celestial navigation. You've simplified it so much that you're happy to concede it can be done on a ball.
See the diagram on screen now? Yeah, this is how they claim they do it. Yeah, with bent lines that don't give them elevation angles, and the GP marked with a line to the centre of the sphere, Jaron. This isn't working on the sphere. They're moving the angle to the centre of the sphere. You see how the little diagram of a boat hasn't got an angle coming from it anymore? You notice how it's coming from the centre of the sphere now? That's in a sphere. But again, Jaron doesn't understand the argument or the rebuttal. Because if he understood the rebuttal, he'd never suggest that it would work on a sphere, because it can't. So even in his defence of the ballers' claim, now don't get me wrong, him being wrong about their rebuttal isn't going to mean that the ballers are going to pat him on the back and tell him he's done well anyway. That's how they respond to each other when they get it completely wrong for their own response. Who cares? What's that? You're contradicting Nathan? Oh, well, then you've done really well when you say it can be done on a sphere. No, in a sphere, Jaron, for the in a sphere. Yeah? With the celestial dome that you point out, your perspective view for the flat plane in the sphere to actually work. But obviously this is so complicated, even when it's some of your own examples.
Nathan,
Shout out.
can you go?
Hold on. Hold on. Shout out to Godzilla. I watched your show, so here, have some money. I know, but in Canada we still call it that. Oh right, because it's Canadian money. Oh, thank you very much for the super chat. You're incredibly generous. You should never demean your own generosity, Gord. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Go ahead, 10th.
Just to support John, refractive curvature, go to the last slide. It's a description of a theodolite. And you could see here that the legs of the tripod are set up on a sloped surface. And they got a plumb bob hanging from the bottom of the theodolite, okay? And so that is going to give local zenith, 90 degrees. And then you can see it's got a vertical circle clamp and a horizontal circle clamp. And then you could see the dotted line where it shows the angle from the eye view to whatever reason they're using this theodolite for. Wow. Vertical circle control clamp, horizontal circle control. Where's the curved surface control?
What's D?
I don't.
What's D?
Yeah, look at. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. And look at the dotted line from the eyepiece matching D.
A parallel with it. Oh, you can only have that on a flat plane.
Yep.
Yep. Earth must be flat for this tool to work.
Maybe we need to give a class on prepositions like in and on or to and from. Because if you're not getting it at this point and you're trying to argue a different prepositional phrase in support of your argument, I think that maybe basic prepositions need to be covered.
Exactly. And also basic geometrical fundamentals, like a circle differential from a sphere when you talk about a segment and a angle on a circle, and then you're going to argue about it being a curved surface just because the word circle. Basic fundamentals in geometry. A circle and a sphere is not the same. Jeez.
To have somebody like Nathan Oakley take his whole team, and now they just, I mean, the show the other day was like 4 hours of them debating whether I'm an agent or not, which is just, it's so dumb. And yet this is what they spend their time on. It's just sad. It's like, well, we're never going to get anywhere if this is what you're going to worry about for 4 hours.
Can I comment on this?
Yeah.
Listen, 4 hours talking about you're an agent. Well, maybe someone said that, and maybe we kind of had fun going over that. Well, you stopped taking the globe side, maybe we wouldn't be talking about it. You're supposed to be a flat earther.
Well, did he debate whether we were scammers with anyone, or did he just make this statement?
Just said, you know, he's scamming you because.
So that's how you know.
Yeah, I don't think he's an agent. I just think he's done poor research.
Wait,
And
hold
he's
on.
stubborn.
Hold on a
It's a
second.
perfectly reasonable point for him to raise. Yeah, because I think a lot of the audience will be listening and be as confused as we are. Is why it was debated. Yeah, how can you be in this arena this long, be able to take the ball apart, yeah, and having done so amicably, adequately well in the past, how can you now get to this point and start making the statements he's making about us siding with the ballers? We can't define your motivation, but we can look at your behaviors and your actions and the words you're using and the accusations you're throwing and say that is like the behavior you would expect of an agent, somebody who's embedded in somewhere, and then is saying things to the detriment of the movement, to the contrary of what the movement knows to be true, making concessions to the opposition which aren't necessary. That would be agent-like behavior. Can't say you are, but certainly the way you are presenting yourself at the moment is very much like somebody who's acting as an agent.
I would like to point out I defended Jaron through that.
Me too.
Which I regret doing now.
Oh, I don't regret doing it because I don't think anybody should be making assumptions about people being agents. And the justification Adam's just given for the discussion, and indeed 10th Man, is still absolutely 100% correct. In other words, when that discussion comes up, it's not something I would shut down immediately. I would take the contrapositive position, as does John. Now, that wasn't pointed out. A few people in the comments did point that out, by the way, John, just so you know. So it has been recognised. One or two, I don't want to say, that is strictly several, but I don't want to make it sound like it was more than a couple of people. But they said, hang on a second, didn't Nathan actually point out that he doesn't believe he's an agent and it's unreasonable to argue that point? Wasn't that Nathan's position in this regard, given that he's critiquing me specifically? Yes, it was, and it was also John's point. No, I don't think he's an agent. I don't think it's reasonable. We haven't got any justification to say that. We've got no evidence to back it. You've all got your hints and your inferences from his actions, and that's fine. I'll hear it. And the audience is probably thinking it, which is why it's justified, based on his actions. Does it mean we've proven he's an agent? No. Does it mean I'd ever stand by that until someone actually shows me a page stub that's got CIA written on it? No, probably not. But it doesn't mean it's not going to get discussed. That's how people will think of you, Jaron. When you start telling them that you can do elevation angle measurements on a sphere or celestial navigation on a sphere, when no, not even the ballers would claim that. They put it in the sphere, Jaron. So yeah, suddenly people are going to go, why is he decrying this flat earth proof when he doesn't even seem to understand it? And people, this is something they've mentioned lots in the comments, sounds very shilly to me, seems like agent behaviour to me. He seems like a shill. Why isn't he conceding this needs a flat earth? Everybody understands that angles need a flat earth. The guy's a shill. Agent in place. That's what I get from the commenters. So of course it's going to get discussed. That's what people think when you do stuff like this.
And Nathan, like Nathan,
I just want to shout out a quick super chat, Adam. Shout out to Liz the Iron Maiden. Long time no see. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I just want the truth about this realm. Yep, that's all we want to, Liz. Yep, absolutely. That's all we're focused on, hyper-specific on what the Earth is, natural science, that's the science of the world that we live in, and how we were deceived into believing something other than the reality that we face. That's what we focus on. We're hyper-specific, especially in the live show. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Go on, Adam.
Just to reiterate, I'm not making that accusation. Listen to the words I used. Said behavior like, yeah? You could look at it and it raises questions. I don't care, frankly, about proving or disproving whether a Jeranism is an agent. I'm happy to highlight the things that may be described as agent-like, but more importantly, they're kind of chewing over the nuance. I've got no problem with correcting Jeran on his misunderstanding of celestial navigation and elevation angles and how it proves a flat Earth. That's worthy of going over. Say this until there's actual evidence of that. All I'm happy to do is point out the behaviour and what it is commensurate with. Doesn't mean he is, but I hope Jeran can understand why normies, just listeners, are raising that question. It's because of the things you're saying and the contradictory they are and the concessions you're making to ballers. That's why it's a little obtuse what you're saying and raises an eyebrow to people. Contrary to your previous positions.
And I like to add, if you don't call him an agent, then this is like I said yesterday. Jeran, under his platform, Jeranism, was merely a conspiracy theorist who spoke about various things that we don't discuss on FED. He talked about paranormal. He talked about, him and Witzer talked about the Tartaria, the past mud floods, bearded giants, all these things that have nothing to do with proven scientific reality. So one of his let me finish. One of his categories is flat Earth. He expounded further on that when he got with Ghostbusters, whatever you want to call them, Globebusters. So people tagged him as a qualified flat earther. But he apparently has never been truly on the level of FED because he always expounded on things that are not scientifically proven. He was pseudoscience, ether, electrostatic, stellar, all of these things. So I think we've given him too much credit as being a flat earther. This is my perspective, and I'm pretty sure the normies can agree that now understand and they look into Jeranism's background. He's not a flat earther.
Hold on a second.
Okay, just one second. Just one sec.
Let me
Neil.
finish, Neil.
Go ahead, Neil.
So his major is not flat earth. He has been growing to become, just because he had a lot of subscribers, he had many subscribers as Jeranism because of other aspects and things he spoke about. He wasn't a main flat earth subscribing, acquiring person. And I think that's what we got to understand. So that's why he sounds flawed and fraudulent, because he hasn't done his homework. If he stuck to flat earth all the way through like he did and stopped expounding on those other stupid things, his game would be tight.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying he hasn't focused on flat Earth.
No.
So that's why he is the way
before
he
you two thrash it out, thank you.
Jeranism was never about flat
Thank
Earth.
you. That means stop. Yes, I don't want you to thrash out what you mean. Yes, we got the point. Thank you, D-Rose. Brilliant. Okay, wonderful. I just want to play this because I actually nicked this for a trimmed out clip that I'll publish in the next couple of days, probably today for members. But I used it in the clip to make my example because I specifically mentioned it. So I thought I'll just go and get the clip. But I thought it was worth noting. So now we're reaching the point where the dust will start to settle. In other words, there's a good chance tomorrow we won't cover this. We'll be on to something new. And then in a week, we'll have all forgotten about it. Actually, that's not true because I'll be publishing it on my second channel on Saturday. But there we go. Once the dust has fully settled, right, this hasn't been of massive detriment to me, right, like it was with Globebusters. But I want to play you something. I've just put a link. Hopefully the mods will repeat this link so you can go and let this videographer know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. I'm not actually critiquing him or being critical of him in any way. I'm using his point. But I want you to hear it from the originator of the point. So the videographer is called Frame Chasers. So it's specifically about computers and overclocking and things, which isn't really the point, but I might as well tell you what the channel's about in case you are interested. But he's talking about community. So I want you to listen to what he says specifically, because it relates directly to the effects on us as a result of Jeran going around calling us scammers and such. Because I'm hoping that it'll make the audience feel a bit warm and fuzzy. So anyway, check it out. This is Frame Chasers. Let him know that by going to the link at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, Give him a genuinely positive comment. I actually do like this videographer a lot.
Same shit, right? So if Linus starts doing,
Oh, okay, just language warning, he will swear a bit.
their channels are obsolete, right? He's still defending himself. Yeah, I don't know why he's defending himself so hard. Who cares? This is also why you, for any new aspiring YouTubers in the fucking chat right now, this is why when you build a channel, you have to make it community driven and not size driven, right? These guys are all scrambling and defending themselves because they don't have communities. If somebody was like, Jufus is scamming everybody, I'd be like, okay, it doesn't matter. I have my community, right? Jufus's fucking benchmarks are all wrong. He's auctioning off these prototype things. Okay, dude, we'll get there. But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're community driven, nothing affects you. You're like, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't have to defend myself, right? Right.
That's basically it. So there you go. So when I mentioned the sentiment, I'm like, why do I need to care about Jaren's 15-minute string of ad homs? Do I need to defend myself in this regard? Does it affect anybody who's actually watching of the 123 people now? Are any of them going to change their opinion? No, not a single person's come to me and said that they have. Not one. So why? Well, because now we've got a really strong community. Ones that go, ooh, that sounds like a good piece of evidence. I'll use that. Ooh, that sounds like a good argument. Yeah, I like that. I'll go and take that. What I have had is an absolute shed ton of people complimenting me on their advancement of their understanding of science and the method through being hyper-specific about the hypothesis construction with Jeren. So several, not more than several, lot of people have come to me and told me that they've benefited from it. So it's definitely been good, Neil. Also, Neil, 3 weeks, man. 3 weeks, no issues. Hey, John, by the way, QE.
I'm kind of not sure how to take that little clip. First, I thought that's the position that Jeren and Bob took. They had a community, so they didn't need anything to back it up. The community consensus was sufficient. I would draw the distinction of why you're saying you don't need it. Why is the community here? It's not because we're all lovey-dovey, yeah. It's because we're all behind a set of standards that have got us off the ball. Yeah, that's what's holding it together, those standards. Yeah? Not the community per se. Not the desire, yeah? If you start dropping your standards, look what happens to the community. The community will pull away from each other. It'll segment. That's not a strength. The strength is the standards that we're all standing behind. That's what gives us the winning argument, whether it's a baller or in amongst ourselves. That's the strength for me.
That is something that I should really stress that for Frame Chaser's sake. That is exactly his argument for why he says he can not suffer any loss when people are calling each other scammers, for example. His standards. So he's saying, no, when I test stuff, I do it properly. My criticism, and in fact, his reason for starting a channel, was his critique of the poor job other YouTubers was doing when benchmarking equipment. He's like, no, I know what my standards are. Don't care. Call me a scammer all you like. Everyone who sees my standards knows my standards. That's it. That's exactly it, Adam. But you wouldn't know that unless you're watching him. 132 people watching. Wow. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, Liz is agreeing. I'd say to Liz, it can be very uncomfortable sitting on a fence. You know, when you get off, you'd be a bit nervous, but I tell you what, you've got a lot of room to spread and relax when you're not perched on a fence stuck.
Okay, we've been going live a little bit longer. Given the size of the audience, I'm not entirely sure why we've got such a big audience today. Should we progress a little bit further?
Yep. Is whether it doesn't make sense. Why would you ever think that? Because I say science doesn't prove things, that means that I'm an agent? I mean, that doesn't even follow. For me, it does follow. Me saying that he...
Okay.
We don't need to add on.
No, yeah, no.
Hold on, Adam. 10th first. Go ahead.
Let's just quote him at the beginning. Yeah, when done right, it proves things. he's double speaking again. This is over. I mean, he's already admitted to you that when it's done right, it proves things. Okay, good. Now, what did he just say? Play that part again.
Oh, I'm not on the right screen. Hold on.
Just play the last 7, 8 seconds.
Science doesn't prove things. That means that I'm an agent. I mean, that doesn't even follow. You know, for me,
Science doesn't prove things. Does that mean I'm an agent? That doesn't even follow. But earlier you said when done right, it does prove things. So why would you ever say it doesn't prove things? I mean, this is so dumb.
It does follow fundamentally, as we were saying. It doesn't prove you're an agent, but it does follow that if somebody was an agent after all these years of using the scientific method to disprove the ball, that they might now start to decry that method as it demonstrates other things or doesn't support other things they postulate. It does follow, doesn't prove you're an agent, which is why I would stay away from that, making that accusation. But it does follow that you would do that sort of behavior if you were. Makes perfect sense.
Yes, I agree with that, but let's just keep it basic. He said science does prove things when done right. Then he said science doesn't prove things. Right there alone tells you he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Said it more than once.
Yes, the contradictions are strong with this one.
Well, you can prove
that right.
You can prove. Hey, man, you can prove scientifically that science does not prove anything. You heard?
I think the quote was, "We've proved science doesn't prove anything, and we've shown that with a test."
Yeah, that's it. You hit it.
Yeah, that's one of the rebuttals I heard. And again, you have to listen to that, and the audience is listening to it.
Do you want me to contextualize that? Because that is again a failing on my part. So where Jaron is, he's postulating the argument that you've got. Let's just keep it in the context of reality, but along his lines of argumentation. So we go back, let's say, 500 years. And as I've postulated, we're studying water. Let me just close this window. The window cleaner's just coming. One sec. You're going to hear rattling and...
Right now would be the perfect time to start cussing a lot,
Okay,
guys.
sorry, hold on. It's only a second. Okay. So Jaron's position is, you go back 100 years and you're trying to cause water to boil because you've seen it as a phenomena. So you try and heat up the water to cause it, but unfortunately, through whatever limitation, you can't get the water hot enough. So at that point, as far as you are concerned, you have validated your null, but yet water, according to me, Nathan, it's still caused to be boiling at 100 sea level. And in this instance, prior to us knowing that in this hypothetical scenario, we haven't yet proven it, but we have proved our null that water isn't caused to boil with heat. So how can both be true if we're proving it doesn't? Now, again, I'll give credit, if I could remember who it was that pointed this out in the comments. They further qualified it to make Jaron still right, which was smart. Again, I wish I could give these people credit. I do read all the comments. First thing I do actually when I get up. Anyway, they said, no, at that point, if you actually qualify and write down your results of your test, your experiment, which is to say you heated the water to 80 C and it did not boil, well, then you've proven that. You've still proven it within the parameters of your test. Now, once you've written that down and next man comes along and goes, right, I'm going to stage 2, do a bit of background research. Oh, what do you know? Someone else tried to validate heat as the cause of boiling water. And what I can see is the amount of heat that they used was X. I wonder if I use more heat than that, I can get it to boil. Now, at that point, Jaron's argument is, but when he does, the guy who said he'd proved his null was wrong. No, he wasn't. His statement, once qualified because he's done the experiment itself, is qualified because he didn't get a successful result. So he didn't actually achieve his aim, which is to prove your cause of an effect. He validated his null. So he then writes down the circumstances under which he validated his null. And he did validate his null. He validated it at 80C. So if you say, as a logical statement, upon application of heat, water will not boil at 80 degrees C at sea level, or 1 atmospheric pressure. Sorry to beg the question, that's just the terminology. Don't take my head off. Anyway, so he's still proven that. So it's like, will you come along tomorrow and put water to the temperature of 80C and it will boil tomorrow? No, it won't. No, it'll still be not boiling, confirming his null exactly as he validated it, as long as you've got the parameters and he's written it down within the limitations that that person did the experiment. However, when you do achieve your aim, because you're trying to prove the alternative, you're trying to prove your cause correct. That is to say, next man does his research, sees the 80C point, heats it a bit more, and gets it to boil. At that point, you can, if you choose to, stop. You've got the effect. You've induced the effect. So if you choose to, you've still validated the cause of the effect. You've induced the effect. Hallelujah. That's the genius bit of science. Now, it doesn't seem like a hallelujah moment when you're talking about boiling a bloody kettle in this example. But if you're trying to find out what's causing a phenomena that's killing people, and eureka, you figure it out because you induce the effect upon varying something that you assumed would cause it, but you didn't know until you varied it, and then voila, it happens. You induce the effect. You've proved your cause. That's your hallelujah moment. That's when technology might come along and riches and all the things that scientific validity, that's confirming the alternative, not getting a zero difference result. Because, yeah, you've still proven something with a zero difference result, but you're not trying to not prove anything. You're not trying to get a zero difference result. You're trying to prove the cause. And if you don't, you qualify enough for next man to research and do a bit better. Where you were, let's face it, in this example, if you're using a dumbed down boiling water example, it's incompetent to only get it to 80C. Hence Jeran taking it to 500 and then 800. And all sorts of hypothetical examples to make it harder and harder to what confirmed that it didn't boil at 480C if it boils at 500. Well, yeah, it's still tomorrow at 1 atmospheric pressure only going to boil at 480C if you assume water's going to boil at 500. Well, that's still validating that null hypothesis when qualified with the extent of the variation of the independent variable. That's still true. Still been proven by experiment, that null zero difference result at 80C, or in hypothetical Jeran world, where La La Land needs to be invoked, at 480C, because it's going to boil at 500. Still prove that it doesn't within the parameters of your null when you explain it and detail it. But again, like, credit to Quantum Eraser, you look at what you're doing and why you're doing it, you need a bit of bloody common sense. Yeah? And why am I having to give this in a dumbed down example? Well, because it's been braced against, hasn't it? Anyway, let's do a bit more.
Let's follow me saying that he's a scammer because he never has gone back on anything he's ever said. He never admitted that we were right and disproved the boiling at 100 degrees thing. He never, ever admitted that.
Sorry, I should admit that whole water boiling at 100 degrees thing is wrong because you disproved it. Okay. I am literally lost for words.
Well, that's not true, Nathan. That, again, that's a straight lie. Because after he started making those claims, he was asked, he gave a citation, him or Whitsitt did, which we bothered to do a number of shows on and review the whole paper, where we made the first time of the joke about reading half the book, because we went through the rest of the paper and it demonstrated that if you add heat, water boils, yeah, at 100 degrees at 1 atmosphere. There's ways in which I think he mentioned this various pots can induce boiling at the surface of the pot, linked to the pot by local variations in temperature. Ain't none of it disproving what he set out to do. That's not a genuine response to me, because we genuinely took the same with the claims with the sun. I can't remember what they were, but whenever he's made these claims, we've gone through them and explained And if he's used citation like he did there, we've gone through it properly and demonstrated his misunderstanding. So that, I'd say, is disgenuine at best and a lie, in my opinion.
That he just says no, oh yeah, well, it's heat caused water boil. Remember, they switched that. It used to be water boils at 100 degrees. But again, like today, I just told you, I can show you a video where I put a pot of water in my oven, put it at 400 degrees, and kept checking it for an hour or two, and that water will never boil. Okay. So again, just in that alone, you should kind of see where, any kind of experimentation you're going to do, it has to be under the correct.
If you want to hear QE getting frustrated with him using that example 50,000 times, then check out QE's yesterday live stream, where he goes over and over and over and over and over and over it, getting more and more frustrated. Gotta admit, QE, that was quite funny. I watched all of it, by the way. Very good.
Parameters. But who decides that? This is the thing about science. We're just human beings. Don't put too much pressure on anybody to do all these things that is just impossible. The best way to get to the truth is let somebody hear your evidence, hear the tests that you did, and decide for themselves. That's all.
Perform the test themselves. If they want to go on, someone else got to go ahead.
It was Neil Chocolate than me.
Neil,
I just said, what the freak is wrong with this guy? That's all. Go ahead.
thank you for the color commentary. Chocolate, go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing.
Thank you both for the color
he's just
commentary.
babbling, unfortunately.
See if it's 3 for 3. Color commentary from Adam, maybe? Go ahead, Adam.
Well, mine was a whoa. Has that just been described as the best way to get to the truth is be convinced, not by anything empirical, present your evidence, and then you just decide? That doesn't seem a decent methodology. That seems to be embedded in bias, both from what the information is going to be presented, because it's not got any standards to work to, and you're not going to work to any standards. Sorry, Neil.
I was just saying, it won't be empirical evidence then. If people are going to decide whether it's true or not, here's the test. You decide for yourself.
And what are you then going to use to, after being given this evidence, what are you going to use to validate your opinion? How are you going to, what standards are you going to use?
I decided a couple of days ago, based on Jaron, that I'm going to ask Jesus, or maybe Mary.
Well, is it like Neil deGrasse Tyson suggests? It's on the demeanor of the person, the presentation skills. Yeah.
Jesus was a hell of a PowerPoint user.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm sure that's why philosophically we came up with the scientific methodology of acquiring empirical proof. So we don't have to have it opinion-based. We can prove things. I don't like the alternative he's suggesting. Sort of thing like that, if you went along with that sort of thing, you could end up believing you were living on a spinning ball in the vacuum of space, couldn't you?
If I know what you did and I'm able to think about it and go, okay, so you experimented by doing this, and then
not think about it, replicate it, repeatable, observable, repeatable, falsifiable. What's the other one?
Systematic experimentation.
Yeah, I'm talking about empirical evidence. Observable, repeatable. Anybody else?
Falsifiable.
Falsifiable. There's a fourth one.
Demonstrable.
Demonstrable. Right. Demonstratable, observable, repeatable, and falsifiable. Right. You can do all of those things yourself. No taking anybody's word for it. No. Oh, well, he got it wrong. Let's move on with our life. No. Replicate their experiment. Check that they've got a valid hypothesis. Make sure the effect is induced when you vary. What they say at this stage, because you're just reading it, causes the effect. And when you vary it and you induce the effect, you can go, oh, what do you know? I did the experiment and I empirically demonstrated that this does cause that. How do I know that empirically? Because this caused that. I mean, how much more empirical do you need? Oh, well, maybe tomorrow it won't, right, Jaron? No, it doesn't work like that. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction, something I was trying to drill into you and have been for several years.
than this. Like for me, I'll say, does heat cause water to boil? Well, it's
yes, it does.
Really pressure, but in that question, does heat cause water to boil?
Yes, it does. Yes.
If you heat it up enough, the answer is yes.
Yes, that's right. So it's the cause.
Thank you, Jaron.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. We really, really needed you to affirm that for us. This dumbed down
Hey,
example
one
we
second.
used.
1 second. Thanks, I just woke up. It's observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable.
Observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. Thank you, Kiwi.
I got one right.
Now, Jaron, has that been proven? Yeah, to the highest level that it can be. But am I open to the fact that tomorrow we could find out that
water doesn't boil if you apply heat to it? Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to get up, boil that kettle. The electricity's going to flow. The smoke's going to come out of the bottom, but the bloody water doesn't boil. Just starts changing its stupid self all the time. What? Are you upping me on?
it's not actually the heat, but say there's something else that we don't even understand yet. It's the molecular netting. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Okay. No. That's fine. I was going to use his next words. I'm going to have to use those. So sod you, Jaron. I already had this planned before you said that. If molecular netting, then water boiling is a perfectly viable... I can't even say it with a straight face. Anybody know what molecular netting is?
Suspension?
It causes water to boil.
No, don't ruin my point, Neil. No, our
molecular netting, like
thank you,
like
Arwin.
colloidal suspension.
Thank you. Our suppositional statement at this stage, based on Jaron's supposed cause of water boiling, would be the independent variable of molecular netting, whatever the hell that is. I don't actually know, but that's okay. Jaron does, clearly. He said it. Well, you can formulate a hypothesis with a null of if molecular netting, then water boiling, and if molecular netting, then water not boiling. But everything else, with the exception of molecular netting, for fuck's sake, Neil, shut up. With everything else, with the exception of molecular netting, held constant. So there'll be no varying of pressure, no varying of heat, no varying of anything except molecular netting. And when you vary molecular netting, and it does or does not induce boiling, you will prove one of those statements true. Now, like with gravity, the initial premise that the cause even exists in this instance is up for question. But we'll just brush past that and say if molecular netting, then water boiling is, if we assume that Jaron's absolute horseshit of molecular netting is even a thing to vary. I mean, it brings me nicely on to what makes an independent variable an independent variable, the prerequisite parts it must have to be called an independent variable. Number one, it must be real. Number two, it must be capable of being varied by you, the researcher. And number three, it is your presumed cause in the hypothesis. Now, does molecular netting fall under the category of capable of variation by a researcher and or real? I ask you.
Well, Nathan, I just Googled it. Molecular netting is not a thing. You literally made it up.
Oh. So, good job we know how to assess whether or not a suppositional statement in a hypothesis qualifies as being an independent variable, because it eradicates bullshitters just making shit up and calling them independent variables.
Arwen's wrong. I got a picture of it in Master B.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've been quite stubborn. I'd never ever heard of it. And like I say, if you Google
Arwen, hold on. You got to eat humble pie.
Oh, so sorry. I'm literally scrolling. It's not showing up. The literal word.
No, we've got a picture of it on screen in Master B.
What? Where?
I've got complexity of molecular nets, a topological approach, and descriptive statistics.
It's a statistic. I'm sorry, Adam. when you have to vary something physically in physics, is that a statistic that you'll be varying?
No,
Oh, seems like Jaron doesn't understand the difference between maths and physics. What a shame.
Yeah, so it's a statistical analysis of a crystalline structure. It's a calculation to characterize structural class. So it's yeah.
Is it tangible?
Well, it's not showing up in any Google searches, so it's very obscure, whatever it is.
On the
He's
screen.
gonna have holy shit. He's gonna have a problem with bias, right? Because he just invoked molecular netting, right? But he doesn't believe atoms exist.
No, that was Witsit.
No.
Same team.
No matter what it is. I'm never at a point where I'm going to say that we know all things, that we know.
Nobody claimed to know all things.
Know all elements, every parameter. I mean,
nobody claimed to know all elements and all parameters.
They think that egg experiment proved relative density. When, if you think about it,
he comes up with these like half statements. Proved relative density. What? No. Cause and effect. Effect. Naturally observed phenomena. Vector change. Some things go up. Yeah? Like the clouds. Like the gases. Yeah? Some things come down. Like the rain. Some things, like me sat here right now, don't do anything. They remain neutral. Now, when something goes from neutral to up, for the sake of argument, maybe you could look at a puddle. You could go, oh, I wonder why that happens. Why was there a vector change induced? You can go, oh, maybe I can figure out the cause of the effect. Now, the cause would be the relative, that's two different things with respect to one another, density of the medium will cause a vector change. So when you say proves relative density, that's a half statement for what was actually being established when performing an experiment to find out the cause of the vector change or vector changes we observe in nature. So why does he parrot it off with this half statement that means nothing?
Let's pretend that there is a force of gravity. Let's just pretend.
What am I hearing? What?
Let's presuppose. This is what ballers do when they want to draw you in their fairy tales.
Okay, let's just assume we've got gravity, says Jaron. Okay, well, if that was a baller in front of me, I can't believe I'm having to do this with Jaron, a fellow flat earther, but fine. I mean, we do what we do when we have to do it, I guess. Let's just imagine we've got gravity. Well, what's that? Well, we'll find out after a long convoluted gaggle screw of 108-year out-of-date nonsense about mass attracting mass, followed up by a total other nonsense about a fourth-dimensional space-time bending. We'll find out that it's actually just a force that's not really a force, but we'll think of it as a force, holding us to the side of a spinning water ball. When describing weight, that would be objects more dense than the medium, that would be air, falling through it in a downward only to be addressed vector. So ignoring all of the vectors and only focusing on a downward vector, let's assume we've got that. That would be your gravity, in quotes, Jaron. No, when we got to that stage with a baller who's telling us we must beg the question of this shite that you're telling flat earthers to assume, even though we've spent years debunking it and asking for, what do you know, scientific evidence of it, because that's what they bloody claim, science for gravity. Yeah? We get to the point where we say, no, not all things go down. That's a misconception that you're trying to explain. If we assume that all things go down, then now listen to my shite about gravity. Not all things go down. The relative density, end statement from Jaron, being the cause of the vector change, wasn't a specific vector change in any direction, because we observe all sorts of vector changes, not just down. So that's what we would address after some fundamentalist religious zealot ball believer told us, like you have, to assume we've got gravity. Why?
This crazy force that pulls to the center of the earth, which is ridiculous.
What, pulls the clouds to the center of Earth, Jaron? See how immediately when you describe their gravity for us, because we're going to be assuming it according to you, Don't know why that is. You're a flat earther, right? But there we go. When we do, it's all moving to the center of Earth like the clouds do. Do they move to... If I release a helium balloon, does it go to the center of Earth? Yeah, see, we'd eradicate this stupid shite that you're telling your audience to assume, Jaron.
Ridiculous and shouldn't be believed, but let's...
Sorry, shouldn't be believed. No, I didn't just tell my audience not to believe in gravity. I eradicated the base premise that all things go to the center of Earth by pointing out that the clouds aren't doing that. So where I have succeeded in explaining why you shouldn't believe in gravity by demonstrating there's nothing to believe in because it's an assertion that things go down, Jaron just makes the baseless assertion and handwave dismissal that you, his audience in this example, just shouldn't believe it because he says so. Do you see the stark contrast between what I do when I debunk gravity and what Jaron hand waves when he tells you just not to believe in it? Because it's ludicrous. That's your debunking. It's ludicrous. No, not all things go to the center of Earth. I example clouds. Jaron's rebuttal to gravity. It's ludicrous. See the standard difference?
Pretend that was there. And you had an...
Oh, I see. So it's hand waved as being ludicrous for no reason whatsoever. But now let's pretend it's there. No, we can't pretend all things go to the center of Earth because of the clouds that I exampled that would stop us assuming that that's the case, Jaron. See the difference in standards?
Egg sitting, floating in water. And you added density to that water. Well, because the little pieces of salt are going to be attracted to the gravitational pull, then
What? Sorry, because they're going to be attracted to the downward of the clouds. It doesn't make any sense in your example, Jaron, because of me and my taking apart of gravity at its base premise of all things go to the center of Earth, the thing that you said is ludicrous. I took it apart and said that no, not all things go to the center of Earth. So when you invoke a force of what the clouds moving away from Earth, that's not a force I can invoke in this scenario. No, I would. Go ahead, Arwen.
Sorry for interrupting. You were on a rant, but
no, go ahead.
Like he's not realizing that the salt is not supposed to go down. It dissolves in the water, so it becomes a part of the whole body of it, and thereby decreasing or increasing its density. So it's just misunderstanding on purpose or something. This is just
Point of concern. Rather than hold them to their claims to prove it empirically, what Jaron is doing is saying, I like to allow them to beg the question. And when I allow them to beg the question, if we lived on a sphere, if there was gravity, they have a point. So I can't argue against that. That's what he's doing.
It would cause the egg to displace up. So because they don't believe in that, their hypothesis was based on something totally different. And if you can't realize that if they walked away and said,
when he says their hypothesis, if you knew what a hypothesis was, that was the whole point of me coming to you in this instance, to explain what a hypothesis was. So if their hypothesis, what independent variable, dependent variable, and antithesis in the null. Yeah, if they're saying they've got a hypothesis for it, you would ask them what it is and where they varied their presumed cause, and if it's valid at all.
He proved that relative density is the reason for things to go up and down. And
well, no, he induced a vector change by varying the density, ergo demonstrating his suppositional statement in the affirmative true, proving it.
This is, I think, where Jaron demonstrates, Nathan, that he's not grasping the concept, because he keeps mitigating with, well, what if when I put the salt in, it was actually a magnet, or this, or that, or what if I didn't put enough heat in, or what if I could get water to boil at a different temperature? He's missing the point of just varying that one variable. He doesn't understand that even if down the line he found out that there was an electrostatic component to the way which the salt aligned, to make the egg move, he's still got to put the salt in. Yeah, he might gain a little bit more understanding that he might be able to prove scientifically later. That will never negate that. If you do that, the egg will rise. Yeah, you've increased the density. That increase in density might be in relation to something else you can describe, right, with his magnet. But it will still never negate that when you add the salt, the egg will move. because of the relative density disequilibrium change as that plays out. That's never going to change, even if you grasp a much fuller understanding of what's happening when you increase the density of the medium. I think that's the disconnect that he's not getting. He thinks that in some way, if you add to your knowledge,
it disproves the knowledge you just got.
Yeah. So, let's just summarize that. Good point, Adam. Exactly. So the assumption on Jaren's part is you vary heat, you cause water to boil. Okay. But also, if I vary pressure, I can get it to boil. Okay. Yeah, you can. Well, that means that heat doesn't cause water to boil. No, it doesn't mean that. Water will still boil if you apply heat to it and get it up to 100 C at sea level. Now, if you hold that temperature constant and alter the pressure of the water, you're telling me that you can also induce effects similar to what you observed in the hot spring. Yeah, you can. When you hold the temperature constant and only vary the pressure. So you can induce that. It doesn't alter the original outcome. You've still proven that. It doesn't change because you've expanded your outcome or expanded your knowledge and shown or demonstrated that you can induce the effect by a different means. Likewise, if you refine the means, so like with vitamin C itself isn't the original cause when you establish what was established through the scientific method in terms of the citrus fruits and vegetables that were added to the diet of the sailors coming back and dying of scurvy. Well, if you say, well, okay, but now we know it wasn't the citrus fruits, it was the contained vitamin C within the citrus fruits. You go, yeah? So you can now go forth and only give them that particular vitamin. Yeah, you can. Yeah. Well, other than saving on surplus pulp from the fruit, the outcome was still the same. You still give fruits to people and they don't get scurvy as a result of their vitamin C in their bloodstream. That's still true. Knowing that it's vitamin C, or let's say in a year's time, they go, oh, it's not just the vitamin C, it's actually this one tiny element of vitamin C that we're going to call the quion. Now, the quion within vitamin C is actually the fundamental part of the vitamin C of the citrus fruits that causes scurvy. Yeah, but contained within citrus fruits, the original cause of the effect, and contained within vitamin C, a refined version of the exact same cause of the effect, has a further refinement of the cause of the cause of the... And so it goes on. You're just refining your knowledge. But at no point in that refinement of knowledge when you say, oh, it's not just citrus fruit, it's this element of the citrus fruit, doesn't suddenly mean that citrus fruit don't stop you getting scurvy. That doesn't alter. But that's the misapprehension that Jaren's under. Exactly, Adam.
That's
and
crazy.
the reason things have weight and the reason things drop, you hopefully would be smart.
Things have weight and the reason things drop. Notice when I qualified our different standards here on Flat Earth Debate versus Jeranism, I qualified the clouds going up and the helium balloon go up and not everything moving to the centre of Earth, as is asserted to need explaining with gravity. But here we are again with his assertion that all things go down. No, when I overcome gravity, Jaren, I do a good job so that you don't leave the door open for the idiots you are obviously dealing with and not overcoming their argument to beg the question of.
Can't realize that if they walked away and said, we proved that relative density is the reason for things to go up and down and the reason things have weight and the reason things drop.
Reason things have weight and drop. Up and down. Seems like a bit of a contrast there, Jaren. Contradiction in terms, maybe.
You hopefully would be smart enough to go, well, not really. Yeah, if that's what you were trying to show, you showed us. Great. Changing the medium changes the placement of the egg.
So he proved it then.
Yeah, thanks.
So he's proved his cause and effect relationship.
So our hypothesis needs to be formed correctly.
Yeah. If a variation of the density of the medium, then the cause, that being the cause of a vector change. The null being a variation of the density of the medium will not induce a vector change. The experiment is the actualization of those two predictions that can't exist simultaneously together. So at the point that you formulate the hypothesis, when you state the hypothesis, it's implicit that you haven't proven anything, because you're stating both a variation in the density will cause a vector change and a variation of the density of the medium will not cause a vector change. So you go, well, which one is it? You go, well, we've got to actualize this hypothesis and see if we get the alternative result confirmed or the null result confirmed. One's going to get confirmed. And how are we going to confirm it? Well, we vary the medium, the density thereof, and see if we get a vector change. Now, let's say for the sake of argument that Anthony, who did this recently, was actually a magician and lied because he's a scammer. And while he was adding the salt, which didn't really change any vectors in the egg, he actually turned on a little magnet underneath the... Yeah, well, then you wouldn't trust him. You'd do the experiment yourself. You'd take his hypothesis at face value and put it through the method yourself. You actualize his hypothesis and vary the density of the medium, holding all else constant, and see if you get the same exact effect induced. Don't trust him, don't take him at his word, do it yourself. That's how you actually perform the scientific method. What I described after Anthony's experiment with an egg is me doing it, and then you doing it, and then everyone else doing it, and varying that which was assumed to cause the effect and showing that it does. Ruling out the null. You'll never vary the density of the medium and not induce a vector change in that specific example to validate the null. It can't happen.
So if I heard them say, well, here's our hypothesis. If the egg moves, then relative density is true. No.
Yeah, then a variation in the density of the medium will and did induce a vector change. That's what happened.
No. If
what do you mean, no? That is what happened. He showed it. It has been proven.
The egg moves, then you proved that by...
If it did. Not if, it did.
Changing the medium, you cause the displacement of the egg.
That's exactly what happened.
You could leave it at that. You kind of showed that.
This is babbling.
He wants to deny reality.
Is he babbling like this?
But it doesn't mean that that's the cause.
What? It doesn't mean that when I change something and induce the effect, that the things I change induce the effect. That's exactly what it means.
I mean, it's the only cause. So
no. It's now its only cause. Yet you can hold constant the density and vary a different independent variable like magnetism and see if the magnetism induces a vector change. Independent variable magnetism, dependent variable vector change, null. You will vary the magnetism and not induce a vector change. So then you just have to actualize that hypothesis, suppositional, scientific prediction. You just have to validate that by varying what you think will cause it. And let's say you do. So you vary the magnetism instead of the salt, because that's now being held constant. It's an independent variable that will be varying. Only that magnetism will be varied, not the salt as well. And if we do see a vector change, then we have not only expanded our knowledge of the mechanisms of vector change in this instance, but we have not invalidated the original suppositional statement that was proven true. You'll still vary the vector or induce a change when you vary the medium by way of its density. That's still true.
So it just is such a simple thing to me, and it's just frustrating that show used to be so good, and I don't know what happened. But it's like, why wouldn't Nathan just go, you know what? It's better for the show if we have Globers there, because they...
Well, like Chaiki, who's still here. Like Chaiki, who tried to argue about gas pressure not needing a containment by demonstrating it with a container. That kind of baller, Jaron.
Bring arguments, we refute them. We don't just have...
Like that one I just demonstrated that happened literally on this show today. That's a nice little fundamentally flawed argument you've got there, Jaron.
An echo chamber where we repeat
Echo chamber? What, with the baller that we had today? Oh, no, definitely. He used the same trick you did, though. He tried to talk through me when I proved him wrong. You know, and I asked him about his container.
same dumb shit over and over again. It actually challenges everybody. And that's what was great about the show before. Now they literally sit there and suck each other off. It's
Sorry, you think
I
that
didn't
men
hear that.
on the internet who have no physical connection with one another fillet each other orally via the internet? And you think that's literally what we do? Do you know what the word literally means, Jaren? You mean
Fuck
they
you, Jaren.
figuratively suck each other off? Figuratively.
miserable.
Well, the
No.
problem is that the globe doesn't have an argument, right? I mean,
No, but
ultimately.
so expose that. So show. I mean, this is why when I had McToon on my show, and people got all upset. No, you let him off the hook. I think I exposed it.
Stupid to realize
Now, maybe people don't think that. I don't think there's any chance somebody was a flat earther, watched that, and said, "Now I believe in the globe." No chance. But is there people who watched him fumble over?
But you're saying there's no way that anybody could believe that they lived on a globe. You've explicitly instructed people to beg the question of a sphere with a tangent so that it can work when you make an angle to a sphere that you assumed? So you can transpose it into the globe that you said it would work on? No, I'm pretty sure that at the end of that you were directing them to do exactly that, Jaren. Like directing them to believe that it could work on a sphere. I mean, yeah, that is what people would have taken away from your meeting with Toon. You've reaffirmed it to me personally and told me the dangers of not understanding how it works on a sphere. So, yeah, I'm kind of confused about why you'd say that, Jaren. In fact, I'm going to play it again. Oops.
I think I exposed him. Now, maybe people don't think that. I don't think there's any chance somebody was a flat earther, watched that, and said, "Now I believe in the globe." No.
Even though you explicitly directed them to believe that it could work on a globe. Okay.
No chance. But is there people who watched him fumble over being able to come up with anything about the way they get their numbers, their weights, their measurements? I think we gained something. So to me, this
Pause.
Projection.
Well, no,
Adam, you want me to go first or you? Mine's short, Adam.
Well,
All right.
I've got a cream for that.
All right.
Sounds like a personal problem.
Well, you guys are in Jaren's mind, I guess. Fumbled with that? Who is fumbling on a debate show without an opponent recorded after Nathan left? He is fumbling every point and he's projecting.
I think he's talking about McToon fumbling, right? Yeah, but he's
No, he is fun. How many times have we corrected Jaren here on this part of the show that Nathan wasn't there? How many times have we had to correct him already on how many different things? Many, right? So he is thinking, oh, I got McToon to fumble, while we have Jaren recorded here fumbling left and right.
It's just different. And here's the thing. I don't mind if different people have different ways of doing things. Like, that's fine. Your channel, do what you want. My channel, I do what I want. But the problem becomes when you attack me. I've never attacked.
The point that I interrupted for. The mitigation there was, do I think, and I agree with Jaren, do I think any flat earther changed their opinion that day? No. But I think we're there just to keep preaching to the same crowd. We're trying to convince the masses. So do I think if I'm listening to a debate, baller versus flat earther, that when the flat earther says, oh yeah, you can do celestial navigation on a globe, it'd be disingenuous to say you can't? Do I think that that would maybe keep people on a ball? Yes, I do. I think it's a ridiculously incorrect, false submission to a point that you clearly don't understand. When you do, you can actually demonstrate how it can't be done on a ball. So, you're passing off what we're objecting to. You're straw manning it as something else. Yeah. No, I don't think anybody would have been back on the ball after that night. But I do think your submissions may have stopped a few jumping. And they'll use that argument in the future in your submission on those points. that will be used to keep people on the ball.
I've never made a video about him. I've made videos positive, but never a negative video. And he's done probably 25 on me.
What, with clips
Oh
of your
my.
video
Oh.
of you saying I'm a scammer on your channel when you made a video saying I'm a scammer on your channel, making you a liar? That, yeah, with the clips from your channel. What? Seriously, Jaron, just lie. You've never done it on your
Hold
channel.
on.
Yeah, you have. That's where I got the clips
He
from.
made a video of you as with an MC Hammer song calling you scammer.
Right. It's just a,
So he's
it's
a
just a
liar.
liar. He's just a liar.
With my name in the thumbnail. And it's clearly the reason for that is to get views. Clearly, go look at his channel.
So the reason you've made an MC scammer video is to get views. Okay. Okay, I'll accept that. With my name, because that's what you've used.
Which gets the most views.
Okay, so you just wanted views with your MC scammer video. Gotcha.
Putting my name in your... So that's why they spent...
But putting my name in your lyrics, that's just you wanting views.
Can I interrupt, please? I can't take this anymore because I got to go soon anyway. To think that we are using him to gain some traction on debate arguments that we're having problems with. To think that we would have to go to his channel and say, why don't we just address Jaron? That way people will start watching our show. This is how much he's in love with himself. And came home, caught it while it was ending, and then they kept talking, and I said, oh, well, I could always listen to the beginning. What's Jaron going to say now without Nathan there? And it was such a gold mine, as we're finding out. So that's why I suggested it.
Hey,
It's a
QE,
well-known
you said-
tactic. I don't see.
I'm not doing another one. I'm finished with him. So it's all you guys. Just roll with this.
I don't see you making any kind of crazy like speculation there. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I can certainly see your argument. You know
But
what I mean?
do you see, if I say science doesn't prove things, how many shows
What
do you
kind
have
of
to do about that?
moderator? What kind of moderator could say that?
Yeah, I got him yesterday, dude. I wasn't ready for that because I didn't listen to it closely, but I got him yesterday. So the hammer, somebody go get him and bring him in here.
Oh, I could get him. He's an element.
Yeah, get him.
So what's wrong? Just explain.
No, breakfast is coming, so I can't explain, but it's kind of well.
There you go. He's not had his breakfast, so he's even going to leave the mods alone. I think they did a decent job. I think all they're worthy of is a little bit of guidance. Yeah, I don't think they're worthy of any beratement. Without them, that wouldn't have happened. That whole show. And I don't particularly think they did.
No. The moderator was siding with Jaron. He made some statements yesterday on the treatment on my show that I called him out on. Did you guys listen to that? Now he just repeated it.
Just replay the last 10 seconds. He'll do it now.
Is this Hammer's first time doing a mod? Because I mean, I can see me making a mistake if somebody gave me the mod.
He stated yesterday that science. He says, "Yeah, I told ballers that science doesn't prove things." That's what he said yesterday. Hammer.
Oh.
To Jaron.
Really?
You guys missed
Yes,
that.
he did. Yes, he did say that.
Nah, I didn't catch part 2, QE. Sorry.
Can we just play the last 10 seconds?
That's pretty bad, though.
Yeah, very bad.
They agreed with him doing the show. That's what pissed me off. When Nathan went away to get that video, I was like, Nathan, would you hurry up back?
Speculation there. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I can certainly see your argument. You know
But
what I
do
mean?
you see, if I say science doesn't prove things, how many shows do you need to do about that? Mention it.
I could see.
Jaron said yesterday
about you specifically saying that is what you're asking me.
Yeah, they went off on me for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. I hear you there. I definitely hear you there. And in some ways, this may sound like, but I would take it as a compliment in a way, right? If
I don't want to be talked about on their show. I don't want. First of all, I don't like to listen to the show, so I don't want to have to tune in and hear, and I have to hear from other people. And they said that, that's why, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were telling.
My gosh.
No more, please.
So the moderator is saying, I could see your argument there. What argument? He agreed that if done right, science proves things. And if done wrong, it's a failed test. Okay. And then he says science doesn't prove things. And the moderator just is so happy. He's got the big flat earth subscribing channel called Jeranism there. He doesn't have the cojones to stand up and say the obvious we're doing. And as Jaron is worried about what we did in the past, the last 2 days and QE treatment, which I haven't heard, this is going to go on even longer. So
hit it right in the head.
You're welcome.
It
You're
doesn't
welcome.
matter. It doesn't matter what he says. Okay, his job is to be a mod. But criticize the fact that he's bothered to engage with one side of the debate at this point. Yeah, right. That's the critique of him being a mod. That's all. What he says is his opinion. Yeah, it may not have been his opinion. It may have just been platitudes to fill some time because you're a bit unsure of what to do. If you're going to critique what he should have done, which is to either hand the floor to Jaron, as I said yesterday, and let Jaron do what he does there, which he did for an hour and a half afterwards, yeah, or just let there be silence, yeah, until Nathan got back. But what you shouldn't do as a mod is engage with the other side, whether you agree with them or to begin to disagree with them. You're not there to garner any of your opinion. It's supposed to be two people's opinions discussing it. That's all that, to me, is the critique that's worthy.
Right. That's my point, Adam. Jaron, Nathan's not here, so he can't defend himself on these accusations you're saying. That's what he should have said. Not say I agree.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I actually just came from a very, very heated debate with Witsit over at 24/7.
With the lion Surat.
Did the
I was trying to get you to come in there, you and your posting and leaving.
Was it heated enough to boil water?
I'm posting my ads like I usually do, and I'm here.
No, I know that's not said. I said with your posting and leaving, but I'm just joking.
Yeah, I'm posting my ads like I usually do. I just post my ads and move on sharply, and I'm here. Does that surprise you?
No, it's regular behavior. I knew you weren't actually listening. You wasn't in the VC, so. But yeah, I mean, maybe y'all can do a critique on that one day. It was a very heated debate. It obviously involved
Mike's
what
all yours,
you guys say.
Eli, Mike's all yours.
Say again?
Mike's all yours. Launch into it. Tell us what is fresh in your mind. You go ahead. Take priority, my friend.
I mean, it just seems to, like, the problem is that they're trying to validate null hypothesis. Like, I'm like, you're not testing the null, guy. Why do you keep on? And he's like, well, it's either if A then B, or if A not B. So what Jaron was trying to explain was that you can introduce vitamin C and it's not enough. Therefore, you've not proven the null. I'm like, no, fam. The null hypothesis was the lack of vitamin C, not somebody adding vitamin C. Like, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a better.
No, you're giving us enough, Eli. What you're saying is he wants to take it to La La Land, where in his example, you give a little bit of vitamin C to somebody with scurvy, and they don't get better. Okay. No, the problem with that is that actually, if you give someone with scurvy vitamin C, they get better. That's the problem with that.
Well, it would be if I give someone just a little bit of vitamin C, they'll still get scurvy, is what they're trying to say. And, you have to have it in an amount, So you give them 1 milligram, they could probably still get scurvy.
What about if you give them 1 milligram of grass juice?
Yeah, it's silly.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that's not even a part of the hypothesis construction. Like, you see an effect happening and you're trying to figure out what's causing that.
Sure. But
now,
on the plus side, Eli, what I'm also hearing is you, and in this case, Witsit, just mentally getting the cogs greased up to work to understand if A then B or if A not B, and they're going through it with you and then telling you how, well, but if this, C, and you're going, no, just A and B. Right, but they're going through the motions, aren't they? The cogs have started to turn, haven't they?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That ultimately we're still talking about the method that they claim is invalid. You can't even critique the method without properly using it.
Yeah, even if they're not properly using it, they're starting to wrap their heads around it. And wrap their heads around how it doesn't work, with it being pointed out. Yeah, got to start somewhere.
Well, it was really nasty. I'm not gonna lie. It got super rough. My blood pressure was boiling. Somebody's like, "You gotta get some water, man."
How could Eli?
When you're
Eli,
over the
how could
target,
it be?
you're going to get flack.
How could it be invalid when Jaron says, "When done right, it's valid"?
Yeah, that's the thing. But they're just trying to. What he's trying to do is get a contextual win when there isn't one, because he's again trying to say that we're saying that the null hypothesis is empirically proven, and I'm like, no, what you're being
hold on.
is
Hold on. You said no. Well, that's wrong. The answer is yes. You always prove something. Okay, you weren't here for this because you were debating Witsit, so it's perfectly reasonable for me to go over it again with you, like I did on the live show, while you were rudely debating Witsit on another channel, spreading the word and good deeds and all that. Anyway, when they say, and I should have done this with Jaron, I only managed to heat the water to 80C and it didn't boil, right? Therefore, I confirm my null. But in reality, water still has heat as the cause. Therefore, by this standard, it seems like we're both proving the null and proving the alternative. How can that be if only one is true? That's their position. Just let me explain. When you confirm the null because you only get the water up to 80C, your null statement, when you write down what you confirmed, is still true. In other words, tomorrow, if you heat the water to 80C, it still won't boil. That's still true. That null hypothesis with qualification, and it only needs qualification because you're actually only going to continue because you want to make the water boil. So it might be that on your experimental journey, you heat the water to 80C, write down the result, 0 difference, at 80C. That's still true. Following day, wow, I really wanted to induce this effect. I'm trying to prove the alternative, after all. Your point, right, Eli? You're not trying to prove the null. You don't fail with your prediction, essentially, by proving the null, and then say, that's it then. You still need to prove the cause of the effect. So then you vary it a bit more to 95C. And you don't notice the bubbles, you've got hazy eyes. Nevertheless, you write down 0 difference result, right? Following day, you heat it to 100. It gets to a rolling boil. You validate your alternative. Have you invalidated any of the previous null statements? So the previous null statement, for example, water will not boil at 1 atmospheric pressure at 90C. Is that not true now that you got it to 100?
no,
of course not.
But I can see
still true.
I mean, okay, where as far as the quantifiable portion of that, so a null can have a quantity simply because it was already tested?
No, there's no there's no quantification with hypotheses at all. 0.
It either does or it doesn't. Now, when you fail to validate the cause of the effect, the objective trying to be achieved, you want to prove the cause. When you fail, you might qualify your failure. in terms of what you did, so that further researchers, in other words, the bit we tend to not talk about, which is the research stage, can look back at what you did with your variation of your presumed cause and see if there are any flaws in your basic common sense in this case, and say, would he not have thought to heat it up a bit bloody more? Well, obviously this guy was completely incompetent. Let's leave it on the stove a bit bloody longer. Or whatever. My point being that it wasn't that, no, the process didn't leave you with a non-empirical outcome. You had an incompetent experimenter.
Right. I did point that out. I was like, okay, he just got it wrong a little bit. So what's the big deal?
No, it's not. There's no right or wrong. There's no subjectivity in the. You guys are getting Jedi mind tricked. You better start thinking. Right? It's very simple. It's all qualitative with hypotheses. Now, afterwards, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty on dosages and stuff like that, more power to you. But that doesn't have anything to do with the hypothesis you just validated. It's a cause and effect question. It either causes it or it doesn't.
So, in other words, if 80, if ATC does not induce the effect, that's it. You've qualified it. It's objectively true. You've demonstrated it, and it will always remain true. It's not going to be the case that tomorrow you go back to the exact same spot, apply 80 degrees of heat to the water when measuring the water.
Huey, I get that, but so what is the
not even want to do that?
I get that. So what's the difference between quantity and quality? Because I mean, there's a certain.
Gotcha.
But, I mean,
let me answer.
Because at the same time, you do have to vary.
Let me answer.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. This time, we're going to vary the qualitative amount of soil in the water. What's that you say? We didn't add enough. I'm going to pile an absolute shit ton of soil into that water because that's the quality of our independent variable that we're testing here. The quality is soil. How much of it? Yeah? See the difference between how much soil and whether or not soil will actually be the quality that we're looking for to cause it to boil? Because we're focused on knowing the cause already when we talk about water boiling with heat. We're already under the, well, we're going to be using heat, obviously. Yeah, that's why it's being used as the example, because we obviously already know the cause. But then it's taken as read rather than being used as a dumbed down example. So when I change the qualifying statement of what will cause the effect from heat to soil, suddenly the qualitative versus quantitative variation is made absolutely obvious. Because so long as we know what's causing it, we can argue about how much. But if we're varying the fucking soil, we're never going to make it boil ever, no matter how much we put in. So who cares about how much? First, we need to know what actually causes it. And that's where, if we didn't know that heat caused water to boil, and Jeran came along and only put ATC to it, fortunately, systematic experimentation would preclude that incompetence, and we'd still ascertain the cause when somebody less stupid applied a bit more bloody heat. Because heat, the qualitative value of it, not soil, because that doesn't matter how much you put in, but the how much heat, i.e. how much you vary it, yeah, that's kind of qualified when you call it an independent variable now, is it? But not varying it enough would just be incompetence. Yeah?
Let's get back to it. Go back to his example. What was the problem with the vitamin C and scurvy? Let's stick to subject and not jump around. I've about had enough of that shit.
Well, let's paraphrase it for him so you can react to it. If I take a vitamin C tablet and get a razor blade and a microscope and shave off a couple of grams of it and then powder that into a very tiny amount of dust, cut it into really fine lines, and then give that to somebody with scurvy and it doesn't cure them, well, then we validated the null. That's his argument.
It's fucking retarded. First of all, are we back in the past? Did we Did he Doc Brown us
He
again?
didn't give us any violins. He didn't do the wobbly wobbly sound, did he? He didn't go.
when I
We're back in 1874.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I decided to use the example of, the lack of vitamin C on a voyage, like out to sea. And he said, well, what if it's actually the disruption of the vestibular system? It could be correlation. And I was like, well, put them in a building and deprive them of vitamin C. I don't like what the fuck. I don't know, bro. Like,
it could be. It could be that my aunt had balls and she was my uncle.
Could be that.
But seriously though, what if your aunt had balls and she was your uncle?
That would be quite disturbing. Okay, so let's get back to this. So, what's the point? So it was. I thought we had already, in the scenario, ruled out everything else, and it was diet. So now we're going back to another fairy tale, and it's what the rolling. I think I had one of these when I did the example in my presentation. I put bilge pumps, pipe smoke, swabbing the deck cleaning solution was the yawing of the ship was that one of them? I think it was. So, okay, what's the point? Continue.
I mean, that was kind of it. He was saying basically that you can't empirically prove the no because you don't know how much.
What's the no?
The no being that he said adding vitamin C to someone with scurvy.
No, with respect to the vestibulary system.
Yeah, I'm on the vestibular.
Oh, nah, there was no point to that. It was just saying that,
just no point. Just bring it up like a fucking moron that he is. You know what, Nathan? I'm thinking that fucking shits at 60 gave Jaron that fucking argument.
I told you.
Yep. Now, is that important?
Hold
No.
on. Just so I can put the pieces together. So, based on the defense of Jaron's position in this specific regard by Whitsitt and his passion therein, you're suggesting that his outward passion for that argument would imply that he's got that passion because he gave it to Jaron and then Jaron failed on his ass with it.
Yeah. Yes.
That's crazy because I was thinking the inverse. I was thinking maybe it's that Whitsitt's trying to clean up Jaron's mess, but your hypothesis could be correct. Could have
How
come
dare
from
you?
Whitsitt originally. I had to.
Hey, chocolate. So for another scenario. So quantitatively speaking, if they see a natural phenomenon, somebody's dying of dehydration, like people suffering from scurvy, and the hypothesis is that water takes care of dehydration. So what he's saying is if you only give somebody a tear drop or a eye drop or a drop of water from a faucet and they still suffer from dehydration, that water doesn't take care of dehydration.
Basically, yes.
That's
basically the point right there.
People like that.
No, you've got to say it in a different way. No, that's not fair on Jaron. No. Imagine if we didn't process water. There you go.
Yeah, this is batshit crazy. I don't even. I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm like, are we really having this conversation?
Yes, we're in retardville. Yes, retardville.
Not like some retard. This is insane.
Although this helps because I wish I'd have had this conversation before this morning because again I'm trying to disseminate this information to everyone else who's listening. I mean,
bro, if you think about
honestly,
it like this,
the guys over there, they kind of feel like he's. They don't
think about it like this, Eli. Take the words, right? You were asking before about quantitative and qualitative, right? Quantity. Just think quantity.
I get
means
it.
how much.
I get it. I just didn't understand the whole well, if it's like 80 cc's is like, well, that counts, there's numbers in there, but I don't know how the hell you vary the quality of something and it not I get it. I'm like, okay, obviously I just didn't know how to explain that to others, and I wasn't trying to lie or put lies on nobody's name.
I'm still not. Hey,
validate.
I'm still not hearing a coherent argument just yet. We went from the vestibular apparatus to no point. Okay, then what's the next point?
No, the point he was trying to make, and I I conceded on it. I got to be honest with you guys, is that he said, well, you're not trying. Well, I said you're not trying to prove the no. You're trying to prove the alternative, and in that not being valid, it automatically is proven to be the no.
Yes,
but it's
that's
not
correct.
like we're testing for the no. Was
Correct.
my answer to him.
Correct. You're trying to falsify the null. You don't test the null directly. It's the default.
Right.
That is, if you don't get a change in your alternative hypothesis, it's not validated, then the default stands. It's fucking really simple.
I mean, and think about it, us discussing this, it's not that preposterous. It's not that absurd. Just, it's just like we just reviewed a video and we're zoologists watching two primates tossing fecal matter and using it for moose for their hair. And we're talking about it as profound and discussing as what they're doing. That's the behavior of primates. That's the behavior of Whitson and Jaron. They say things like that. That's all.
He's trying to get me to agree with premises that I didn't agree to by, he put in one point and then he's like not waiting for validation and moving to the second point. And that's kind of why I got heated, because he's like, see, look, they never let you talk. Look at him cutting me off. And I'm like, no, fam, the thing that you just said right there was wrong. Let me rebut that first, and then you can move on. So we got to a point, and he cried the whole way. I'm not going to lie. He cried the whole way because this was happening. And, the moderators aren't doing anything. I'm going to speak to India about this. And, I was just,
wow.
I was just like, but I was like,
It's really gotten to that now?
I was pissed off, bro. Like, but I was measured in my responses, though. And ultimately, he was basically trying to get me to admit that you guys are lying in the sense that science proves if A then B, or if A not B. And I was like, well, what you're trying to do is straw man whatever you said.
Didn't he say you try to prove the no?
He said, but you can't prove the no because you don't know how much. But I'm like, no, fam, again, you're trying to prove the alternative. You're not trying to prove the no. The null is just the result of not proving the alternative.
Exactly.
But he wouldn't let it go.
Eli, he's not family.
Yeah. I
funny?
know it. I damn near cried because I felt like I was whipping his ass, boy.
And you know why you was pissed off? You know why you get frustrated? You know why you pull your hair out of your head? It's almost like this video. They get a funny video about a parent trying to teach their child. They say, Junior, how much is 2 and 3? He says 5. And they say, okay. So then they read him the mathematical question. If I had 2 apples and you had 3 and I gave you 2, how much would you have? 13. And they go, no. And they get frustrated. And they say, no. And then the mother gets to the point where she's like, where the father has to step in and be like, baby, let me take it. And he does another approach about it. And he says, okay, son, now listen to me. 2 and 3 make 5, right? Uh-huh. So if you have 3 apples, right? You got 3, right? Hold up 3. Uh-huh. I got 2 apples. How many you got now? 7. And they just like, oh fuck. That's how you get, because you can't accept the reality that your child is that stupid. So by your humane part of you, you can't believe that an adult can be that thick-headed to not be able to, I don't know, comprehend something, and they're saying it. They don't even realize they're saying it, because they're actually saying that you are not trying to.
No, I think they do realize, D-Rose.
Well,
There's something else going on.
Are they just trying to be purposefully
Well, we just
obnoxious?
got to a point where at some point he was like, okay, well, I agree with that. And so he just wants us to admit on some semantic range that Jaren is not as stupid as we're saying he is, and that
Nah, he's
maybe it
worse.
was a misunderstanding and he was trying to talk Glowbusters down from the ledge, but then we inflamed everything. So it sounds like it's not, because I had to drag him back to the epistemology. He kept trying to drag me back to, I hate Nathan, I hate QE, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about them. I don't talk about them. I don't care what it is. Let's get back to this particular setup right here. And at the end of it, I think he just wants us not to say that Jaren is retarded, because he gets it, but he doesn't get, he doesn't get, because Witsit also doesn't get that you're not testing the null hypothesis. So I don't know why I don't know. I just kind of left. Things kind of quieted down. The rest of the room kind of already was on the same train I was. So I was like, okay, good. They understand at least. They were looking at us go back and forth. Nobody interrupted, because they're like, damn, Eli and Witsit are finally going at it. This is heated. I don't know what's going on. And at first there was a couple people trying to say, hey, no infighting, but then they were like, Witsit is kind of going off the deep end here. I'm not sure I'm on this train.
That's not infighting. He's not part of the in.
Well, he's a moderator over there technically, so that
What a
infighting
shame.
for the, like I said, because he said we're a cult, and I was like, then
we're a cult.
Get the fuck out of here.
We're a cult.
No,
He's the
over
one that
24/7, because I'm peddling the same nonsense, whatever that he also agreed is cool. I don't get it. It's cool 1 minute. It's a useless method another minute. I don't know, bro.
And you're saying this is Austin that you're going back and forth with this, that wants you to ease up on Jaren.
That's not my brother Austin, and that's that personality Witsit.
Okay,
No, I'm just
how can you have a name like Witsit Gets It and you show you exude incoherency?
And with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!